to play you a little video just as welcome everybody and to our conference, day 2 of the TCI MOC conference and driving forward. And we're going to be playing you a little video right now on the Cambodia, just to show you. So I'm going to share the screen, and while everybody's arriving, we'll just play you a little video that we prepared on Cambodia. Okay.
I thought everybody's in.
Yeah.
ប្រទេសកម្ពុជាជាប្រទេសមួយស្ថិតក្នុងតំបន់អាស៊ីអាគ្នេយ៍ដែលមានចំនួនប្រជាជនសរុបប្រមាណជាង 15 កណ្ដកសញ្ញា 55 លាននាក់ ដោយសន្តានដីមានរាងដូចបាតផ្ទះដែលផ្ទៃទំនាបកណ្ដាលព័ទ្ធជុំវិញដោយភ្នំនិងខ្ពង់រាបជាមួយនឹងអាកាសធាតុត្រូពិចក្ដៅហើយសើម ស្របតាមគោលការណ៍អភិវឌ្ឍសហសវត្សរ៍ ប្រទេសកម្ពុជាបានជំរុញឲ្យមានកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចប្រកបដោយចីរភាព ផ្ដោតសំខាន់លើការវិនិយោគក្នុងវិស័យកសិកម្ម ហេដ្ឋារចនាសម្ព័ន្ធ ផ្លូវដឹកជញ្ជូន និងទូរគមនាគមន៍ ថាមពលអគ្គិសនី ការអភិវឌ្ឍធនធានមនុស្ស ឧស្សាហកម្ម អតិពលកម្ម ផលិតផលកមណ្ឌសាលសម្រាប់នាំចេញនិងទេសចរណ៍ ប្រទេសកម្ពុជាមានក្រឡាផ្ទៃតូចតែសម្បូរទៅដោយធនធានធម្មជាតិនិងសម្បត្តិវប្បធម៌សម្រាប់ឧស្សាហកម្មទេសចរណ៍ ជាពិសេសនៅតំបន់ពីរយប់ ភូមិភាគកណ្ដាល តំបន់និរដី និងតំបន់ឦសាន ដែលបានទាក់ទាញការវិនិយោគជាច្រើនដោយបង្កើតនូវការងារ បង្កើនប្រាក់ចំណូលជាច្រើនដល់ប្រជាជន រួមទាំងបង្កើតនៅចង្វាក់ផលិតកម្មនៃវិស័យសេវាកម្មជាច្រើនដូចជាសេវាកម្មភោជនីយដ្ឋាន ម្ហូបអាហារ បដិសណ្ឋារកិច្ច ការដឹកជញ្ជូន មគ្គុទ្ទេសក៍ និងហាងទំនិញជាដើម ដោយមានអន្តរទំនាក់ទំនងរវាងវិស័យទេសចរណ៍និងវិស័យផ្សេងៗទៀត បានធ្វើឲ្យមានការលូតលាស់ដល់ជីវភាពប្រជាជនកម្ពុជា ជាពិសេសកសិករបន្តការដាំដុះផលិតផលកសិកម្មសម្រាប់ទ្រទ្រង់នៅតម្រូវការម្ហូបអាហារក្នុងស្រុក និងផលិតករនានាក៏ទទួលបាននូវការរីកចម្រើននៃអាជីវកម្មរបស់ខ្លួន ដែលជំរុញដល់ការអភិវឌ្ឍលើមូលធនមនុស្ស ការអភិវឌ្ឍធនធានមនុស្សគឺជាចលករមួយក្នុងការជំរុញការអភិវឌ្ឍសង្គមនិងសេដ្ឋកិច្ចរបស់ប្រទេស រដ្ឋាភិបាលបានធ្វើការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរចក្ខុវិស័យអប់រំ ពង្រឹងគុណភាពអប់រំដើម្បីផ្ដល់និរន្តរភាពនៃកម្លាំងពលកម្មប្រកបដោយជំនាញវិជ្ជាជីវៈពិតប្រាកដ ដើម្បីបំពេញបានតម្រូវការទីផ្សារការងារនៅក្នុងប្រទេស ជាមួយស្ថិរភាពនយោបាយនិងម៉ាក្រូសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនាពេលជាង 2 ទសវត្សរ៍ចុងក្រោយនេះ កម្ពុជាមានកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចជាមធ្យម 7 កណ្ដកសញ្ញា 7% ក្នុងមួយឆ្នាំ ដែលកំណើននេះនឹងបន្តរក្សាក្នុងរង្វង់ 7% សម្រាប់រយៈពេលខ្លីនិងមធ្យម ដែលធ្វើឲ្យធនាគារពិភពលោកដាក់ចំណាត់ថ្នាក់ជាប្រទេសមួយក្នុងចំណោមប្រទេសអតិថិករកំណើនទាំង 8 Olam Chance of Growth ក្នុងឆ្នាំ 2014 និងខ្លាសេដ្ឋកិច្ចថ្មីនៅអាស៊ីក្នុងឆ្នាំ 2016 ដែលប្រសិទ្ធនាមដោយធនាគារអភិវឌ្ឍន៍អាស៊ី
Play it once more.
Okay. ប្រទេសកម្ពុជាជាប្រទេសមួយស្ថិតក្នុងតំបន់អាស៊ីអាគ្នេយ៍ដែលមានចំនួនប្រជាជនសរុបប្រមាណជាង 15 កណ្ដកសញ្ញា 55 លាននាក់ ដោយសន្តានដីមានរាងដូចបាតផ្ទះដែលផ្ទៃទំនាបកណ្ដាលព័ទ្ធជុំវិញដោយភ្នំនិងខ្ពង់រាបជាមួយនឹងអាកាសធាតុត្រូពិចក្ដៅហើយសើម ស្របតាមគោលការណ៍អភិវឌ្ឍសហសវត្សរ៍ ប្រទេសកម្ពុជាបានជំរុញឲ្យមានកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចប្រកបដោយចីរភាព ផ្ដោតសំខាន់លើការវិនិយោគក្នុងវិស័យកសិកម្ម ហេដ្ឋារចនាសម្ព័ន្ធ ផ្លូវដឹកជញ្ជូន និងទូរគមនាគមន៍ ថាមពលអគ្គិសនី ការអភិវឌ្ឍធនធានមនុស្ស ឧស្សាហកម្ម អតិពលកម្ម ផលិតផលកមណ្ឌសាលសម្រាប់នាំចេញនិងទេសចរណ៍ ប្រទេសកម្ពុជាមានក្រឡាផ្ទៃតូចតែសម្បូរទៅដោយធនធានធម្មជាតិនិងសម្បត្តិវប្បធម៌សម្រាប់ឧស្សាហកម្មទេសចរណ៍ ជាពិសេសនៅតំបន់ពីរយប់ ភូមិភាគកណ្ដាល តំបន់និរដី និងតំបន់ឦសាន ដែលបានទាក់ទាញការវិនិយោគជាច្រើនដោយបង្កើតនូវការងារ បង្កើនប្រាក់ចំណូលជាច្រើនដល់ប្រជាជន រួមទាំងបង្កើតនៅចង្វាក់ផលិតកម្មនៃវិស័យសេវាកម្មជាច្រើនដូចជាសេវាកម្មភោជនីយដ្ឋាន ម្ហូបអាហារ បដិសណ្ឋារកិច្ច ការដឹកជញ្ជូន មគ្គុទ្ទេសក៍ និងហាងទំនិញជាដើម ដោយមានអន្តរទំនាក់ទំនងរវាងវិស័យទេសចរណ៍និងវិស័យផ្សេងៗទៀតបានធ្វើឲ្យមានការលូតលាស់ដល់ជីវភាពប្រជាជនកម្ពុជាជាពិសេសកសិករបន្តការដាំដុះផលិតផលកសិកម្មសម្រាប់ទ្រទ្រង់នៅតម្រូវការម្ហូបអាហារក្នុងស្រុកនិងផលិតករនានាក៏ទទួលបាននូវការរីកចម្រើននៃអាជីវកម្មរបស់ខ្លួនដែលជំរុញដល់ការអភិវឌ្ឍលើមូលធនមនុស្សការអភិវឌ្ឍធនធានមនុស្សគឺជាចលករមួយក្នុងការជំរុញការអភិវឌ្ឍសង្គមនិងសេដ្ឋកិច្ចរបស់ប្រទេសរដ្ឋាភិបាលបានធ្វើការផ្លាស់ប្តូរចក្ខុវិស័យអប់រំពង្រឹងគុណភាពអប់រំដើម្បីផ្តល់និរន្តរភាពនៃកម្លាំងពលកម្មប្រកបដោយជំនាញវិជ្ជាជីវៈពិតប្រាកដដើម្បីបំពេញបានតម្រូវការទីផ្សារការងារនៅក្នុងប្រទេសជាមួយស្ថិរភាពនយោបាយនិងម៉ាក្រូសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនាពេលជាង2ទសវត្សរ៍ចុងក្រោយនេះកម្ពុជាមានកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចជាមធ្យម 7 កណ្ដកសញ្ញា 7% ក្នុងមួយឆ្នាំដែលកំណើននេះនឹងបន្តរក្សាក្នុងរង្វង់ 7% សម្រាប់រយៈពេលខ្លីនិងមធ្យមដែលធ្វើឲ្យធនាគារពិភពលោកដាក់ចំណាត់ថ្នាក់ជាប្រទេសមួយក្នុងចំណោមប្រទេសអតិថិកកំណើនទាំង 8 Olam Chance of Growth ក្នុងឆ្នាំ 2014 និងខ្លះសេដ្ឋកិច្ចថ្មីនៅអាស៊ីក្នុងឆ្នាំ 2016 ដែលប្រសិទ្ធនាមដោយធនាគារអភិវឌ្ឍន៍អាស៊ី
Stop now. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Okay. So welcome on board for day 2 of our MOC and TCI conference, driving forward, okay, on the road to recovery and green, social and digital issues as they affect Asia. For the MOC Day, which is today, we've got a full program and we hope you're going to enjoy that. And I'd just like to welcome and thank everyone from our colleagues at TCI yesterday for running such a wonderful conference. And today we hope to repeat the same. And what I'd like to do is, before we start on our program, is to pass across to the founder and president of CAMED Business School, Casey Barnett, to provide a few words of introduction.
Professor Ken Charman, Chairman of the MOC Asian Chapter and Chairman of the CAMED Research Committee. Patricia Valdenebro, CEO of the TCI Network. Distinguished presenters, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to welcome you to the second day of the TCI MOC Asia Conference 2021. Thanks to the guidance and leadership of Professor Ken Charman, CAMED Business School was accepted as an affiliate of the Harvard Microeconomics of Competitiveness Network in 2018. CAMED Business School is the only internationally accredited institute of higher education in Cambodia. We were established with the aim of facilitating economic development in Cambodia. And we recognize the potential for cluster-informed strategies to support development of competitive advantage in Cambodia and the ASEAN region. To realize the potential of the cluster approach and how it may or may not be relevant to policy development, it is essential for us to collect, analyze, and share real-world data and experiences from our respective countries and regions. This TCI MOC Asia Conference is a platform to share our understanding of competitiveness and economic development with a broader audience, especially with the academics and students in attendance today. This conference is blessed with highly distinguished speakers, Professor Michael Enright of Northeastern University, Lee Sodet of the World Bank, Piang Ratana, manager of the STEM Club Cambodia, Professor Sepalma Kargas and Entul Sharav Dembarel of the National University of Mongolia, Professor Janet Tan of the San Jose State University, Professor Lee Monirid of CAMED Business School, and graduate students Moses Adrian Zambrano and Solil Ivory Corpus of Ateneo de Manila University in the Philippines. And welcome to undergraduate presenters from CAMED Business School, Chun Sen Niang, Iang Daria, Leng Moni Amara, Riti Niet Danita, Sokun Chutima, Somavini P, Soksraipin, Chun Ratana Vivat, Veng Soksopia, Tasun Sotiatu in Timang. On behalf of Cambodia Business School, thank you and welcome.
Many thanks to you, Casey. And let's continue with our program. And I think just to take you through the order of events today, that we will start off with Professor Michael Enright from Northeastern University as founder and board member of TCI Network. And our colleague Lee Sodet from the World Bank in Cambodia will follow, and a representative of the STEM Club in Cambodia will follow that. And after that, we'll have presentations from Taiwan, from Mongolia, and myself, and we'll have our colleagues from the Philippines and our students here from CAMED. So could I pass the floor, Michael Enright, Professor Michael Enright. Okay. Are you with us? And would you be able to share your screen? And we will pass the floor to you.
Okay, I hope you can see my screen at present.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to do a very quick overview of a very large and complex area, Asia. And in fact, maybe the best thing would be if I just left this slide up and we stared at it for a few minutes, because this is sort of the best one slide version of what the economies of Asia looks like that I can think of. We see vast areas that are empty. We see very distinct pockets, relatively highly developed, and developed at a scale that our colleagues familiar with working in the Americas or Europe, Latin America, etc., just don't see. So this area around Hong Kong, Greater Bay Area, 80 million people. This area around Shanghai, 150 million people. With that dot at the end, Shanghai itself at 23 million people, that's more than the population of Scandinavia. The West Rim of Taiwan, very intensely developed. The area around Seoul, 30 million or so people. Around Tokyo, 30 or so million people. And this just gives us a bit of a picture of how different and differentiated the area of Asia is. Now, from my standpoint, again, having spent a lot of time in Asia and elsewhere, there are a lot of differences. The size and the distances I've already mentioned, the populations, Asia has well over half the world's population. The urban scales are unprecedented, but also the range of cultures, the range of development levels, the range of institutional capacities, infrastructure levels, government approaches towards the economy. And that's not even necessarily nation by nation. If you go to India, the different states have vastly different approaches towards economic development. In general, the economies in Asia are more collectivist, but that doesn't necessarily mean democratic in the sense of decentralized decision-making. In terms of clusters, we see a lot of what I call horizontal as well as vertical and complex clusters. Vertical cluster, that's, the end product and then working all the way back through the supply chain. And while we certainly have those in Asia, we also have a number of clusters which are many parallel assembly manufacturing clusters. In other words, the same activity across multiple industries. We have in several of the economies of Asia, multiple primary producer industries that have in many cases similar issues and dynamics. We also see in Asia, particularly in East Asia, supply chains that are disintegrated across the economies. Or maybe I should say they're integrated across the economies. So the East Asian production system, where the advanced components and inputs come from places like Japan and Korea and Taiwan, and sort of mid-tech assemblies may come from Malaysia and Thailand, and final assembly is often done in China, and the supply chains orchestrated through places like Hong Kong and Singapore. There really is no parallel anywhere else in the world for this cross economy, cross border integrated production systems. So when we look at clusters in Asia, we have to understand that sometimes the cluster may be split across 5 countries in a way that's not common elsewhere in the world. In Asia, and again, I'm going to oversimplify, cluster initiatives are often used as top-down development tools by government rather than bottom-up development tools, although that's changing, and hopefully the TCI and MOC networks can get more of the bottom-up development going. Again, I'll just go on from there. Critical role of foreign investment. In several of the economies of the region, even the relatively advanced economies like Hong Kong and Singapore, foreign investment plays a leading, if not dominant role, which again is not necessarily true in many other places in the world. And then it's often trading companies and sourcing operations of major companies that do the coordination, that play the role of almost cluster facilitator, or what the impanatore used to do in the textile and garment sector in Italy. So these are some of the differences that I see looking in Asia versus rest of the world. But there are similarities, and in particular, similarities in my view in terms of the types of cluster initiatives that tend to be successful. Uh, Anywhere in the world, in my view, successful cluster initiatives address one or more of 4 very specific market failures. Impacted information, that is, the relevant actors don't have access to the relevant information, and that can be something that can be remedied either through government action or through collective action. Managerial myopia, people may have the information on the ground, but they don't know what to do with it. Under provision of public goods, infrastructure, education, basic R&D, and over provision of public bads, environmental degradation, the negative externalities that arise without some force to be able to look in and try to remedy them. And then coordination gaps. Often there is knowledge in a local community of what could move the economy forward, but there just isn't the mechanism to coordinate positive action. The successful initiatives tend to address issues that are the key stumbling blocks to increased economic activity. I remember sitting in a conference once in Pakistan, and we had people from the World Economic Forum telling people in Pakistan that the biggest difference between Pakistan and Switzerland was the integration of universities into the economic development process. And so that's what Pakistan should do. And I raised my hand and I said, well, maybe Pakistan should remedy the fact that 2/3 of the food grown in the country rots before it ever gets to a consumer. Right. In other words, we have to tailor the solution to the actual problem on the ground. And again, the rest is pretty straightforward. Have to take what we know globally, but tailor it to local conditions. Now, again, just to give people the sense of the variety, within Asia, we go from 60,000, that's gross national income per capita in Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, Korea, South Korea, Brunei. But basically, when we start talking about the issues or the problems that are current in Western Europe and North America, we're really talking about them being relevant to 3 very small geographic areas and 2 countries in Asia. And for everybody else, the income levels are such that other issues are most critically important. My rough rule of thumb is that societies become really concerned about local environmental conditions when they hit about 20,000 US dollars per person. It doesn't mean that those issues are unimportant. It just means that other issues are more pressing on the local mind. And we have to remember that when, again, we try to port concepts, ideas, practices from one place to another. In terms of digital readiness, again, Singapore is near the top globally, as is South Korea. This is a Cisco measure where it combines 5 or 6 different metrics, but we see again, we start dropping down pretty quickly. So when we talk about digital in Asia, we're talking about a couple of places which are absolutely cutting edge, and other places where the talk about digital means putting in the basic digital infrastructure that many of us assume away. Similarly, in terms of green issues, we have some of the more CO2 intensive economies in the world in Asia. And it's not enough to say, well, produce less CO2 per unit of GDP. It's a matter of thinking how to modernize and transform economies that may have a resource base that may be difficult to change and displace. So what are some of the changes that we see that require a dynamic response? And this is not just in Asia, but it's rest of the world. It's COVID. It's China's rise in initiatives. China is the sort of the 800-pound panda, I guess, in the region. International trade and economic tensions, RCEP, the new free trade agreement, digitalization, green agenda, et cetera. But also increasing levels of development. 10 years ago, we wouldn't have been talking about, Cambodia fully integrating into the global economy, or Myanmar fully integrating into the global economy. So as new countries reach a certain level of development, the opportunities are quite substantial. With respect to COVID, of course, there's the disease itself and the human toll, et cetera. But also what we see in Asia is potential reservoirs in countries where the public health system is not going to be able to fully bring it under control. And the trouble is these countries may become reservoirs that will persist for significant periods of time, generating new variants that may or may not be subject to the immunization and vaccinations that exist today. We see this with the Delta variant coming out of India. So basically, as long as there are reservoirs of COVID anywhere in the world, there is the potential for a global respread of the pandemic. Then, of course, in terms of economic and business impact, it depends on whether an economy is travel dependent, whether they're able to keep their facilities open or closed, and also the disease fighting strategies themselves. In some countries in Asia, we have sort of high vaccination, low lockdown strategies. But in others, either by strategy or necessity, we have relatively low vaccination and high lockdown strategies. So whenever there are even a small number of cases, we go into lockdown, which of course has economic, psychological, as well as medical implications. I'll skip the role of clusters or cluster organizations because that's probably something better for participants to comment on. But in Asia, I haven't seen much in the way of clusters or cluster organization responses. I see responses that are more industry-based in the pandemic. And this is just a table that some colleagues and I pulled together. This was average daily new cases per day. We can see in India, there was massive new cases in May, and this is now coming down. This is for the week ending June 11th, 18th, 25, and Indonesia seeing the ramp up. We've also, again, a number of people put together a sort of a policy response set of metrics where the higher the numbers, basically the stricter the lockdowns. And then we see vaccination rates over here. And again, it just shows the variety. And until we get these rates up throughout Asia, we're going to have, again, this potential problem of new variants arising from time to time. Another major issue is China's rise and the related initiatives. because there is the potential for countries to become dependent on Chinese markets, source of supply, Chinese investment. And that's not a bad thing. If the market's there, you sell into it, right? If investment is there and you want it, you go get it. There's the Belt and Road Initiative, which is reshaping production and trade patterns in Asia through its infrastructure linkages and investments. There's the Made in China 2025. There's a Digital Silk Road, which is the digital counterpart to Belt and Road Initiative, where a number of countries are linking into that and getting funding and supplies of digital infrastructure through the Digital Silk Road. In terms of trade dependence on China, Mongolia, 92% of its exports go to China, over 30% of its imports. Let's see, Cambodia, we're down here, where China gets about 7% of Cambodia's exports, and China accounts for about 35% of Cambodia's imports. And there are several, mechanisms or metrics one can look at, but it's sort of a quick way of seeing some of the trade dependence on the region, and again, how it varies across the region. The Belt and Road Initiative, basically for those unfamiliar with it, it's trying to connect the Eurasian continent and all components of it to China so that all roads literally lead to Beijing. There are 140 countries that have signed MOUs, but the most extensive investments so far have been in Southeast Asia and South Asia in the energy, transportation, and real estate, which means industrial parks rather than commercial buildings or residential real estate. So it really is a plan that is linking together China with the other parts of Asia. And then obviously this is potentially a big impact on the economies in the region. In terms of tensions between China and the US, and if countries have to choose, we also can see the trade dependence on the US can be important. Cambodia, we saw that China only accepted about 7% of Cambodia's exports. The US accounts for about 24% of Cambodia's exports and a fraction of its imports. So again, the extent to which we wind up with a bifurcated world and whether or not countries have to choose sides is a key issue in the region. RCEP, the new Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Arrangement, once it comes into force, and a few more countries have to ratify for that to be the case, it will be the world's largest trading bloc with about 30% of global GDP. And because basically you have China, Japan, Korea, and all of ASEAN, plus Australia and New Zealand. And this is potentially quite interesting because of the density of the supply chains in the region. So if we again put the whirlwind tour together, what can we draw from it? COVID, again, getting the disease under control, that's one thing. Countries still, in some cases, trying to prevent, people and the economy from falling backwards, different opening recovery strategies. We also, because of multiple reasons, are seeing the potential for reconfiguration of supply chains. Companies wanting resilience, not wanting to put all their eggs in one basket, countries, or rather industries and companies not wanting to get caught up in US-China trade tensions. What it means is that there is a lot of space, there are places in international production patterns which are now up for grabs. And new emerging countries in the region have just as good a shot as any. There are the two edges of China's initiative. Low-cost financing for infrastructure on the one hand, building trade with China, that's a good thing, but the dependency on China and being potentially subject to pressure may be a downside. Can countries in Asia be friendly with both China and the West, i.e. US? And the short answer is we don't know, but they have to try. And different economies, because of their different dependencies, will naturally lean in one direction or another. Digital divide, as I said, we've got, you know, everything from the most advanced to some of the least advanced. So what digital divide and transformation means varies dramatically across the countries in the region. In some cases, even if countries make the initial investments, they won't be able to maintain them and they won't be able to have the continuity and may fall further behind. And then in terms of the green agenda, again, several of the countries in the region have natural resource industries and need those to be as green as possible as to not to destroy the local environment. There are only really a few of the countries in the region, though, that are at a level of development that they're really starting to kick in terms of concern on the demand side. So it just is a different dynamic than what we see in North America and Western Europe. And let me stop there, again, with the whirlwind tour, and we will open it up as you see fit.
Many, many thanks to you, Professor Enright. A fabulous whirlwind tour and of the Asia region and its vastness. And could I actually invite people, if you have questions, to write your questions on the chat. And I just put a little note up there. I have one or two questions. Can you hear me well enough? Yeah.
Yes, I certainly can.
Super.
Yes.
Great. So super. If you have any questions, please write them on the chat. And I have a couple of questions right now that I noticed that you said, Michael, that there's not much in terms of cluster organizations in Asia region. Okay. What's the value added of cluster organizations? If they do take on a role, what do you think that they can add purposefully during the next few years, which isn't here at the moment?
Okay, I said that specifically in the context of a COVID response, but actually the wider point does hold. If you look in places that actually have quite extensive cluster programs, you know, Japan does, Taiwan does, South Korea to a certain extent, those have more or less been organized through, you know, semi-official rather than sort of grassroots private sector or private sector plus academic. They bring the private sector and academic in, but it's sort of more organized through government and top down. What we tend to see less in Asia, and again, participants can chime in if their experience differs. What we tend to see less in Asia is organizations that are primarily driven by the private sector or by the research community being set up as more or less an independent interlocutor with government. And in my view, when such organizations don't exist, it's actually in government's best interest to help set them up. And it certainly is in the best interest of the private sector to set them up. But there tends to be in Asia this sense of if government's not involved, then it's either not important or we better shy away from it.
Okay.
So it just means that in many cases, a lot of the same things happen, but they just happen through a different mechanism. Right? You don't go to the Chinese mainland and look for the local cluster organization. You look for the local vice mayor who has the industrial portfolio that covers a particular sector or set of sectors.
Okay. Thanks kindly. Okay, interesting. So it happens, but it happens in a different way. So thanks a lot. Question from Bin Kibari. Okay. Would RCEP be a concern to the United States?
I think that RCEP should be a concern for the United States. And I think that the Trans-Pacific Partnership, that once it was negotiated, people in the US forgot why it was negotiated. And actually both political parties then backed away from it. The reason why RCEP should be a concern to the US is not that, you know, that something evil is going to happen in RCEP. It's just that the US is on the outside. And once you're on the outside of a trade agreement, the way most trade agreements work is that new members can only enter with unanimous consent. So if you're in at the beginning, you're a rule maker. If you're not in at the beginning, you're a rule taker. And I think by pulling out of TPP that the US missed a chance to become more tightly integrated, both economically and geopolitically, with much of East Asia. So is it a concern? Yes. Is it a dire concern? No, because quite frankly, there's nothing in RCEP that prevents countries from trading back and forth with the US. And in any areas where the US is competitive, RCEP is not likely to divert that trade significantly.
Okay, many thanks. So it's one more quick question that I've got, which I've been given, just on the role of ASEAN. That we have a number of different organizations, relatively new. What can be the great value added of good coordination and working together within ASEAN region? Where can they best add value?
Well, again, ASEAN has always had a lot of promise. And the fact that ASEAN provides an ongoing forum for countries that otherwise may not have as much common cause as we might hope, that in itself is quite valuable. In areas around the environment and around digital infrastructure, around standards for digital business, things like that. That's the sort of thing that ASEAN does actually fairly well at that level of discussion. What ASEAN historically has not done well is created a complete free trade market within the ASEAN countries. Okay. And this is actually one reason why I think RCEP might help, because what RCEP does for ASEAN is it provides access to the big markets. And basically what ASEAN provided to Japan, Korea, and China was a platform in which Japan, Korea, and China could do a free trade agreement without being a trilateral where their historical issues would have to dominate. So I think ASEAN has actually played it pretty well and actually may be able to use RCEP as a lever to open up more within ASEAN. The trouble with ASEAN is that each of the individual countries, there are local oligopolies that just control too many of the industries and don't want them completely open.
Okay. Okay, many thanks to you, Professor Enright. Thank you. I would mention getting up so early in the morning, really to look after us and give us such a fabulous whirlwind tour of the Asian region has been really, really appreciated. So please accept our very much gratitude, and we thank you very, very kindly. And we've learned a lot. So Professor Michael Enright, thank you very, very kindly indeed. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so super. Thanks very much indeed. Okay, so could I pass on to our next speaker? And is Mr. Lee Sodet, who's the senior economist at the World Bank in Cambodia, who's going to give us an update for the Cambodian economy. And I think everything's okay. So, Sodet, it's over. The floor is yours, sir. Please share your screen.
Thanks a lot, Ken. So I just back. I have some connection difficulties, but now I'm back. So can you see my slide?
We can see you, but we cannot see a slide at the moment.
Wait. Yeah.
Yes, we're seeing your screen sharing now. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Yes, thanks for having me. So I saw the video that you presented earlier, so it's very much my presentation, the video itself. So yes, so let's see. As the video mentioned, see the three pictures here. So it's just Cambodia amazingly, risen from very much poverty-stricken nation into a lower middle income by 2015. So you see the picture is just very much poverty and then reconstruction and then development, the three picture. And then what went well during the past 20 years or so. So people ask, look back, what went well. So look, the most important thing is that Cambodia is very open. So very open. And then when the country is open, so a country very much welcome a lot of foreign investors. So you can see this strong performance in the past 2 decades or so. You see this right-hand side chart. You see this, we call structural transformation, agriculture actually declining very fast. And you see industry, manufacturing as well, growing rapidly. And then sound macroeconomic management supported by liberal investment and trade policy. So you see this FDI inflow, you see the FDI inflow very stable. It's around 13% during the past 10 years or so. Very strong FDI inflow. So Cambodia is small and open market. So without FDI, without foreign saving, Cambodia have not accumulated enough saving to rebuild the economy. So look at this, what happened when FDI inflow actually rising. So Cambodia actually built gross international reserve very quickly. Now around more than 10 months of imports. So you see not many countries, have successfully built around 10 months of imports. So, and then look at this government deposit, Cambodia actually different from the rest of the country that largely government have built up deposit during the past 10 years or so. So the government deposit actually cover around 24% of GDP. And this crisis, when the crisis hit, government actually using the deposit itself to finance to finance this this social assistance, to finance a stimulus package and so on and so forth. So this had a lot in terms of cushioning this economic impact. But this is the big but, look, if you look at this factor of productivity, we see that that's been declining over time, look at this picture above. So Cambodia during the past 10 years or so remain very much dependent on garment, around 45%, 50% of exports, actually garment exports. So also market, you see the North America is the largest market for Cambodia export, Europe, European Union and Asia. So very concentration in terms of market destination. Also, this, look at these bottom two charts. If we use the total productivity, this composition, so you see Cambodia, the last 10 years or so, Cambodia actually growing very much dependent on rising capital stock, not factor productivity. So what wrong? What is the issue with this rising capital stock contribution to economic growth? The only thing is that the diminishing return to investment. As you increase capital stock going to economy, so the return actually less and less. So but in the right hand, the middle chart is Vietnam. You see Vietnam case. Actually, Vietnam total productivity actually increased during 10 years or so. So you see the difference between Cambodia and Vietnam. So why Vietnam actually been able to increase factor productivity and Cambodia have not been able to do so. So that's here is we list all these causes that make Cambodia is less competitive. First, narrow-based export, rapidly rising wages, challenges in doing business reforms. So this kind of stuff. So these are the challenge the Cambodia have to overcome in order to go back to sustainable growth. this is this rising capital stock. You can see this public investment and private investment actually increasing very fast, during the past 20 years. So you see this graph, the bottom is private investment, the top is public investment. You see market confidence improves the capital investment by private sector. So now investment cover around almost 25% of GDP by 2020. So look at the right-hand side chart. So the World Bank actually in 2018 look at the Cambodia's target to reach upper middle income by 2030 and high income by 2050. So how Cambodia can reach there's two targets. So we look at this chart. So you see this business as usual, business default. So Cambodia will not reach this both upper middle income and high income. But if Cambodia invests more, like we call investment like Korea, so increase the rate up to 23% of GDP. So Cambodia might be able to reach upper middle high income. But this is a big if. And then, increasing the investment rate from the current 25% to 33% is not easy. And it's not just investment alone. So it's a lot of things come with investment, human capital, skills, doing business, all stuff. So, and then if you've been in Cambodia for the past 10 years or so, you'll know that Cambodia experiences declining employment, and then we question what happened. Economic growth, continue around 7.7%, on an average. But what happened? Why Cambodia actually migrated to work in neighboring country? So look at this employment growth. You see, this chart shows the structural transformation. Actually, agriculture actually been reducing employment a lot during the past 10 years or so. Why? Because of this wage increase. So that's making agriculture less competitive. So wage increase and people move out of the agriculture to services, to manufacturing, and then you see this employment growth rate actually steady while population growth actually increasing. So you will see the last period of this breakdown. You can see that the total employment growth actually dropped from 4.2 to 2.1% during this. And you see why? Because agriculture actually shut 3.2% employment during the past 10 years or so. So this is another challenge, because declining agriculture share actually reducing jobs available for Cambodia. So then we're going to this current period. So look at this crisis. Crisis actually hit Cambodia hard last year. So growth rate actually, estimated to reach to decline to constructed by 3.1% in 2020, but we expect it to recover this year to 4%. So why we can say it's recovering? So because export actually is growing, and then agriculture remains resilient, and we also see that these free trade agreements, the Icp, Cambodia-China free trade agreement actually helping boosting, investor confidence in Cambodia. But still, remains Cambodia continue to be less and less competitive unless they do real, reform in doing business. Making sure that doing business reform, investment climate reform, improving, like logistic costs, improving, all this investment climate, and as well as making sure that business is more conducive to export. So look at this chart. You will see that the declining share of garment export. You see during the past 2 years alone. You see garment export actually decreasing from around 60% to 45%, which is reflect diversification that Cambodia so far has adapted to the challenge because of this pandemic. So you see the pandemic actually pushed the economy to change from garment export to other exports. You see this rising export of agriculture product, other product, export of footwear, export of electrical and vehicle parts. So these are helping diversify the economy. So going forward, so what Cambodia should be doing going forward? So it's, you know, with the pandemic still with us, so it's very important and very critical to accelerate a vaccination program. So I think every country in the world know this, and they all, you know, have made all effort to speed up a vaccination drive. So that's will be the only way that open up Cambodia for business, you know, open up Cambodia for investor, or, you know, so open up Cambodia for, you know, back to recovery. So then what the government and businesses should be doing. So in crisis, so counter-cyclical policy measure remains critical, you know. And I mentioned earlier that the government actually have saving. So the government have been using the saving to provide social assistance, to boost public investment, and to try to attract also FDI inflow. So, but don't forget, just physical infrastructure alone won't be enough. So Cambodia will have to do a lot more on soft infrastructure, which is related to regulation, related to doing business, related to investment climate, related to more competitive, you know, trade costs more competitive, transport costs more competitive, logistic costs, and so on and so forth. So that in this economic recovery plan, the government actually will be doing more on this soft infrastructure. So what else government might be doing? So again, maintain macro financial stability. So, you know, you see this booming construction boom. So what's wrong with construction boom? Construction boom actually drive economic growth, but also create vulnerability because of a lot of credit going to construction, a lot of credit going to housing market. So when the construction boom stall, so what happened to the credit? What happened to the financing? What happened to bank sectors that experience, you know, the impact of this burst? So there's continue to maintain macro financial stability is also crucial to maintain overall macroeconomic stability. So in the long term, Cambodia will have, you know, will have to weather uncertain globalization. I think Michael touched on a little bit earlier about this, you know, globalization, about ASEP. So, but you know, the change, you know, globalization, like 10 years ago, you know, we all kind of agree that globalization gonna continue. But you know, look back a few years back and reshoring, you know, people actually looking back and not invest in foreign country, you know, and they invest more in domestic market. So, you know, these are kind of like what we call it protectionism happening. So technological change also another issue happening. So, you know, automation, you know, IT system. So climate change, you know, Cambodia actually remain dependent on agriculture. So climate change, big impact Cambodia. So these just things that we have to look carefully and then before we can move forward. So this just gives you a rough idea, you know, what you know, key economic indicator going forward. So the World Bank expects Cambodia to grow faster and then around 5.2 next year and around 6% in 2023. So Cambodia now will have to take this advantage of you know, faster than expected global recovery. So this kind of thing will help Cambodia, but in order to do that, Cambodia will have to make sure that, you know, they are safe, investor can come, you know, market can function. So I stop here. So any question, very much welcome.
Okay, many thanks to you. So many thanks, and Lisodit, there's a fascinating view of Cambodia direct from yourselves at the World Bank. I certainly have a question that I've been given for you is that you mentioned that a lot of the advice that you give is related to soft infrastructure like reforms and regulation. Is that the advice that you think Cambodia needs to have? Because previous advice might have been to concentrate on different sectors, like getting more involved up the value chain in the garment sector or in light manufacturing. So if there's one piece of advice that you give to Cambodia, it's all about soft infrastructure, is it? And regulation, and not targeted at specific sectors?
Yes, I think it's important to look back and understand. You know, I gave the experience of Vietnam. You know, and we actually looked into why Vietnam been moving very fast, and they've been moving up to the higher value chain. Vietnam export of electronic actually cover around 60% of total export. Cambodia, you know, on the other hand, export around 40%, 50% on garments. So why Vietnam have been able to move up very quickly. So look back, and then we check at the doing business, check at the logistic performance. So Cambodia actually far away from Vietnam. So then of course they're doing business, of course there is investing climate. So have to be the forefront of the reform in order to move faster. You know, I mentioned earlier that Cambodia has been putting a lot of capital to grow during the past 10 years or so. So capital, you know, diminishing return of capital will hit the point that Cambodia cannot grow faster, even they add more and more capital to the economy. So you see this construction boom, you see a lot of construction, but I don't know how they're going to use with those construction. So at one point that people might just stop putting more money in construction because return is not there. So have to make sure that export, you know, external competitiveness become a key issue. So Cambodia go back to, you know, make sure that they are more competitive, export more instead of, you know, building more buildings, building more roads and things like that. So look at the, you know, power still very expensive here, you know. So a lot more things that have to be done in terms of regulation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think we have a comment from our President Casey Barnett agreeing with you that the aggressive vaccination program, the benefits of that are vastly going to outweigh the costs. And I think we're probably beginning to see that already. I think that there's another question here. How much is part of infrastructure in percentage of GDP? Is there any target? Okay, you mentioned investment in infrastructure. Question from our faculty member, Vadabot Ho.
When the World Bank studied this using long-term growth model, so we found that Cambodia was investing around 20% at that time, 20%, 22%. So, you know, in order to taking off like Malaysia, like Korea, you know, many, you know, like we call it newly emerging industrialized countries. So Cambodia might have invested much more. So, you know, like China, they invest around 50% of GDP, and China saving rate around 50% of it as well. But Cambodia saving rate around 13%, 12%. So, you know, Cambodia actually need to invest more and save more. And Cambodia have been able to invest a lot recently, but not using domestic saving. Actually, they use foreign saving. So, you know, ADI is a foreign saving. So this kind of thing. So you see the implication of using so much foreign saving instead of domestic saving. So, and then the China, like going from 20% of GDP to 50%, you know, it's not easy. To 30%, even not easy.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Two more very quick questions. Two more. Firstly, I think Casey mentioned Kivali's original question, which was, would reset be a concern to the United States? And is that a question do you think that you'd be able to offer an opinion on?
I believe in free. I believe in free trade.
Yeah, sure.
I think it's good to be part of the free trade. It's good for US to be part of this free trade.
Okay.
So, but living, not part of free trade is not, it's not, it's not beneficial. But it is not something that you have to worry about so much, But ASEP is growing, so you see they're moving very fast. So I think sooner or later, the US might have to, come back to not ASEP but to others, free trade agreements. So to be part of the, the world, I think turn your back on free trade is not a good thing. Yeah. So it's the globalization is still important. Maybe some country want to go back to protectionism, but it's still important because it's economic theory. You open up, you grow faster. It's simple.
Okay. Thanks a lot. One very final question for you here, which is from Sokunthir to all of us. Can I ask you, coming out of this pandemic, as we grow, which sector could we expect to grow the fastest? As it was mentioned that Cambodia is starting to stray away from traditional exports of simple goods. Would there be a sector that you would put your finger on, Sodet?
I think look at Vietnam. This is the promising sector is electronic. Electronic is the most amazing. If you buy electronic product in US, you will see that it's made in Vietnam. Before you saw it made in China, but now made in Vietnam. So electronic is a very promising sector. So, but how can Cambodia climb up to the producing electronic? So there's a lot of issues, electricity costs, logistic costs, doing business. So a lot more to do. So, but Cambodia actually doing something. But now perhaps maybe Cambodia might be just benefiting from rising demand for agricultural product. So, but not the long-term solution. It's just a short-term solution, not a long-term solution to grow fast, to sustain growth. So move up value chain, go to higher value added.
Okay. Okay, thanks. I've got just one more question come in here. This must be the final one on this one. Is there any possibility of change of the growth contributors to Cambodia in the near future because of the COVID-19 pandemic? What's going to contribute to growth? Very quickly. Okay.
Yes. I think you might be aware because you've been here. So in 2013, Cambodia actually embarked on real deep reform, education reform. So I think Cambodia is one of the best schools, you see. So Cambodia actually building human resources now instead of just train people, just send children to school. But now they are building, gaining on this. And if you talk to educators, you will think they will tell you that Cambodia in the next 10 or 15 years they're going to catch up with our neighboring countries in terms of human capital development. So this is the thing that you look in, have to consider carefully. So we're gonna catching up as well. Back to you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks very much, Sodeth Lee. There's a real pleasure. It's a pleasure to see you. Thank you so kindly. And we've enjoyed it and great answers to the questions. Thanks to everyone who asked the questions. And Lee Sodeth, thank you so much. Okay. Okay. So bye-bye. Thanks. And so if you could stop sharing now, and we can pass on to our next contributor is Pyong Ratana. And Pyong Ratana is manager of a STEM club here in Cambodia, talking about education. And can I pass the floor to you? Pyong Ratana. Okay.
Yeah. Hello, hello, Mr. Patricia Walnebro, TCI Network, and Mr. Ken Sherman, MOC Asian Chapter, and Mr. Kasai Banan, President of CAMED Business School. My name is Pyong Ratana, freelance researcher or lecturer. Today I want to present about learning in digital era. Can you all hear me? Welcome to all participants, especially all speakers. Okay, now I start present my presentation. I complete master degree in science and mathematics from Royal University of Phnom Penh and Simpa. After completing master degree in Cambodia, I taught at Seoul University in Cambodia. And I also attend summer school at Nim, Daejeon, South Korea, about simplicity embedding systolic inequality and celestial mechanics, and attend Asian Science Assembly Diploma held in Davao City, Philippines, and attend a Common Purpose Asian Young Leader Program in Singapore Institute of Technology, Singapore. And a few years ago, I published my research paper on STEM education in Royal University of Agriculture. And here my website, researchgate.net, the profile Pyong Ratana. And you can contact me by email and also phone. And now we start now. E-learning is learning about is learning utilizing electronic technology to access educational curriculum outside of traditional classroom. In most cases, it refers to a course program or degree delivered completely online. These pictures about we have workshop a few years ago, 2020, by MOE and some sector about ICT4E. MOE did the workshop a few years ago, every year, about ICT. Okay, and discuss about ICT, especially about technology while a pandemic for long distance learning. We know technology very modern today, and we can learn from each other in long distance, from home, from anywhere you want, when you have internet connection, fast internet. Okay. As you know, if you did not learn about technology today, you cannot connect between each sector or people or organization or school for connect between each other. So technology very important today now, especially in pandemic COVID-19. So we have to learn more to application, to work, to learn, and for organization. And we have several apps, social media, like a Google Form, and you can make a survey, quiz, okay? And we have also a Microsoft Form, similar to Google Form too. And we can also use Google Meet. Google Meet is very popular in school, university, institute, and private sector, and all sector. Okay. And we also use Slido to make a survey about Q&A poll, live poll, okay, to make insight about your audience. Okay. And Facebook live streaming. You know, Facebook live streaming very popular for sell product online in Facebook. And Telegram is more popular too for messaging, document, send document, learning online too, to share each other about document, especially file PDFs. Okay. And as one messenger, you can send voice message, picture, like about video, some video too. Okay. Kahoot is also popular too when you take quiz online. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much indeed, our colleague King Ratana. Thanks very kindly for it's. I'm going to reserve questions for that to the end of the session. Because there's a number of points on education that we would like to talk about. But I thank you for giving an overview, because we are involved in education, and giving an overview of the technology that you use is very much appreciated. So thanks kindly. And I'd like to move on right now to our next presenter, which, Tony, you're on for the second day. Okay, and it's Halosa. And if I can introduce Tony as our founder member of the Asian chapter, from the Industry of Science and Technology Industrial Strategy Center in Taiwan, who's going to talk to us on digital transformation frameworks for SMEs. So Tony, the floor is yours. So, okay.
Okay, thank you, Tim. And I'm going to share my screen. Wait a minute. So everyone can see that. Is that okay for everyone? Is that okay? Okay. Okay, so hi everyone. I'm glad to have, it's quite glad for me to have this opportunity to introduce my current research. And this is Tony Lim from E3 Taiwan. Currently now I'm working as a Fintech researcher for Taiwan government, focusing on planning the industrial policy initiative of SME. Today I'm going to present one of my jobs, planning the SME digital transformation policy. So in today's presentation, I will mention what kind of challenges Taiwan SME face and what they really need when it comes to digital transformation. Then I will introduce two international cases, Singapore and Japan. We will see how Singapore and Japan organize their digital transformation framework, and then based on the international research and the feedback from the local SMEs, I will present my proposal of digital transformation of SMEs. Finally, we will have some conclusion. So first of all, everyone knows the digital transformation is very important. After this outbreak of a pandemic, digital transformation has become one of the most popular topics around the world. However, when we try to help our SME initiative their digital transformation, we find that they are facing many challenges and difficulties. Let's see what they are. So here's a problem, like 52% of company report they have not prepared for digital transformation yet. Only 4% of companies say they really achieve or surpass their goal of digital transformation. And 38% of companies just respond that the pandemic is a main reason why they start to do the digital transformation, which means they start to do the digital transformation last year. And almost half of the company just said lack of talents or no IT guy, no IT expert would be the biggest problem when it comes to digital transformation. So what do these SME needs? First, SMEs need a solution that can benefit their business immediately. Usually they have no time to wait. Second, because SME usually have a time budget or even no budget for any solution, they cannot afford any try and error. So some free solution and support or any kind of subsidy policy would be necessary for them. The third one is that SME usually have no IT service, IT knowledge, and of course they have no money to hire any IT guy. Therefore, they really need some IT expert to help them or at least teach them how to use the digital tools step by step. And the Taiwan government has launched many policy initiatives to solve these problems. But this time, I will focus on the publishing the digital transformation framework and explain why it can help SMEs. So now we can enter the, today's main topic. Why do SME really need a digital transformation framework? Or what's the advantage for SME to acquire this framework? Okay, first of all, a good framework can help SME target the main problems and difficulties in their business operation and set up the priority of the solution. Second, with the help of the framework, the SME can spend their time and money on the most effective solution. Finally, a good framework can also narrow down the problems and the SME can solve this problem or learn how to use digital tools step by step. So before we discuss Taiwan's framework, let's just turn to see how other countries do their digital transformation framework. I select two countries, Singapore and Japan, because these their economic structure are similar to Taiwan. Actually, their frameworks also show the different perspective of promoting SME digital transformation. First of all, the Singapore. Actually, Singapore's national digital competitiveness always ranked top 1 or top 2 in the world. Most of the Singapore people have a basic digital knowledge, so the government doesn't need to worry about the education or training of the, of the digital transformation. Singapore government has published 15 industry digital plans with the ebook and some videos. In each plan, the government will introduce the unique digital strategy for their industries and the relative digital tools. The government hopes this SME can read this plan and think about their own situation and then turn to purchase the solution by themselves. So this is the digital transformation framework for Singapore retail industry. We can find there are 3 different stages, and each stage has its own target and relative digital solutions. And for example, for the stage 1, lack of digital capacity is the main problem for the SMEs. So the framework will be focused on go digital economy ready and start to use some simple tools like e-payment or inventory management system. And for the stage 3, the SMEs are supposed to be able to, operate the international business. So the framework would be suggest them to use the tools like omni-channel engagement, the global marketplace, or the apply AI. We can find that the Singapore's framework focuses on the digital material and the different competitiveness. And let's turn to Japan. For the Japan SMEs, lack of digital competitiveness is a big problem now. So unlike Singapore's company, Japan SMEs rely more on the face-to-face communication and the cooperation among people. Therefore, the government of Japan has applied a different digital solution. They gather some IT experts and management consultants and organize an IT support team for SME. These team members will send to some, some specific company when they receive the request from the SMEs or government. The support team will use this strategy map to help the SME to define their need and preference. And we can find two interesting things in this map. First, the targets are very simple: turnover growth and productivity improvement. Unlike other, other framework talk about the innovation, the sustainable economy, something like that. And they are exactly what SME wants, just so simple. And this is another thing is that the solutions are also quite simple. The reason, of course, is that the SME cannot afford complicated solutions. So the support team will also use a case study to help SME understand what to do and how to do. These case studies are short and easy to understand. Remember, there are 8 solutions in that IT strategy map. So for explaining this solution, the team also designed 8 case study or scenarios. For example, the scenario in this slide is talking about how to use remote work in the pandemic. When the support team has a conclusion with the SMEs, they start to deploy the digital solution, and the team will keep providing their service until the SME are certainly familiar with the usage of digital solutions. So we can find that in Singapore, the policy of Singapore focuses on the different capabilities in the long-term planning, and the policy of Japan focuses on the supporting service, helping the SME find their own need. So, so let's turn to our own proposal of digital transformation for the Taiwan SME. So before we start to design our framework of Taiwan SME, we also study many frameworks from the different big consulting firms. As you can see, the consulting like PwC, EY, and Gartner try to finish a comprehensive big framework, while McKinsey and BCG focus on their own strategy and the organization. I need to say there is no so-called good or bad framework, because each one has their own definition and priority. However, we can still find out that most of consulting firms focus on 5 elements: the strategy, the consumer experience, organization and culture, operation and process, and the technology. After considering the Singapore and Japan's case and the framework from different international consulting firms, we have conducted the proposal of this digital transformation framework for Taiwan SME. Just like Singapore's framework, my framework can be also separated into 3 different stages. The first one is about the digitalization. In this stage, we try to help SME acquire some basic digital knowledge and use some simple tool like the social media. The second one is called digital optimization. In this stage, we assume the SME will be able to use some kind of digital tools to optimize their own productivity or some specific department or process like robotic automation. The third one is called digital transformation. In this stage, SME should be able to do some kind of innovation or transform their business model. We also divide the SME operation into 5 key areas, just like I mentioned: strategy, customer experience, organization and culture, operation and process, and the technology. In the next year, Taiwan government will also organize its own digital support service team for SMEs. So this 5 key area map will be able to help the team and the SME to do the business analysis and decide what kind of operation part they should be digitalized first. And actually, this framework is designed by me, and this is also the small part in the ground policy proposal of SME agency of Taiwan government. Actually, the exciting thing is this framework is already presented to our president of Taiwan, Tsai Ing-wen, and get approved by her. So therefore, I'm quite happy to see my proposal has become the national framework of Taiwan. So this is our conclusion. Digital transformation framework can benefit the SME, which usually lack of resource, time, and capabilities. And actually, just like Japan and Singapore's framework, different frameworks serve a different purpose. And a framework is like a diagnosis certificate. You still need to see the doctor and take some medicine by yourself. You still need to jump into some kind of action in order to fulfill this kind of digital transformation. And this is my presentation today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tony. So it's a really amazing whirlwind tour of the SME framework, and congratulations on being awarded your framework as the digital framework for Taiwan. Many, many congratulations. So, and what I'd like to do is to maybe encourage questions. Thank you so much, because there's a complicated issue, and perhaps we'll have time at the end for questions right now. But for the moment, if we can move on. Thank you so much, Tony. We'll have a little bit of time at the end for discussion. So please reserve any questions that you have. For this moment, I'd like to move on. Thanks again, Tony, terrific job. And could I move to our next presentation, which is from Untitled Chapter from the National University of Mongolia. It's great to see you again, Tul. And you're going to present to us on the Mongolian cluster sustainability. They work very much on clusters in Mongolia. Engtul, the floor is yours. Okay.
Hello, everybody, and nice to present my presentation today. And actually, Professor Sebelma and me started this research 2 years ago with help Janet and Ken, and we try to our aim of this study is define the clusters and economic diversification in Mongolia. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, the aim of this study is define the growth and diversification of industry in Mongolia in national and regional level. And as you know, the Mongolia heavily depend on resource economy, especially the mining sector is quite meaningful in our economy in terms of economic activity and also the export of the Mongolia. And the industry development in Mongolia in the last 10 years, we calculated using the CGR formula in this category. And in terms of production, you can see the average CGR in Mongolia in 10 years was 6%. And the most, the financial and insurance activity, CGR is more than 20%. It's the most highest rate in the industry, but the In terms of GDP in 2019, it was the industry was 5. And also the construction industry is shows very high CGR, which is 11%. And most of the big industries in Mongolia, the mining sector, hold and trade industry, agriculture and manufacturing industry, also the transportation storage industry shows about the 10% of CGR and differently influence, has different influence to GDP in Mongolia. Also, we had a study for national employment in industries. So according to last 10 years, the employment rate is quite different in Mongolia. Most of the people works for agriculture, but slightly declining this number of the employment in agriculture. And the shift from the agriculture, especially in growing sectors, especially the construction, finance, mining, and processing industry. And here's the dynamic of change of the average wage in Mongolia in last 5 years. And as a trading cluster, the mining cluster average wage is twice higher than national average wage. And also the CGR rate is quite high in mining sector. And we are delighted to see that in construction and manufacturing sector, is the CGR growth is more than 10%, and people are shifting to these industries. And for the extension of these studies, last winter, Professor Sevelma and me conducted the LQ formula in regions, especially in provinces of Mongolia. And we conducted this research for 10 years ago, 2009. And then the economic specification in central region of Mongolia was about the 60 units. And you can see that the CGR LQ is above LQ above 1 unit. I just highlighted in yellow colors. So you can see that in central regions of Mongolia, the high percent of this manufacturing, mining sector, and then also water supply and the mining sectors. And in last column, you can see that Darkhan province, it's the second largest city in the Mongolia, which is specialized in manufacturing industry. But 10 years later, the economic specialization is lower than 10 years ago. So the same calculation made in 2019, and in regional level, this economic specification has lowered, especially in that area which don't have a mining sector. So, for example, the Orkhon province, Umungov province has mining sectors and big mega projects in that area. So in these provinces, the local economy and also the economic activities are much higher than in other provinces. So in conclusion, we have calculated CGR in GDP production, employment, and average weight of industries using the official data from statistical organization between 2010 and 2019. And the livestock and retail industries still makes a big effort to economy, but the number of the employment in these sectors, in these industries are declining slowly and shifting to construction and financial and insurance and processing industries. And CGR of average weight is higher in construction, ICT, and processing industries, and mining industry average weight is twice higher than in other industries. And at the regional level, economic specialization was measured by LQ based on number of the employment last 10 years. And economic specialization stayed steady in mining-based locations, but declined in other IMAX, it means in that provinces. And in Darkhan, which used to be second biggest industrial city in Mongolia during the Soviet time, the economic specialization has declined dramatically in given years. And economic specialization decline can be explained by internal migration to big cities and lack of proper developed supply chain in regional level in Mongolia. And thank you for your attention.
Many thanks to you, Tul. So it's fascinating work that they're doing in Mongolia on clusters and classic MOC work, and it's really giving us a impression as to what is going on in the Mongolian economy. You say still dominated by the mining sectors, but there's other sectors which are growing, and your analysis is showing that. So I'd say many thanks. It's a fabulously clear piece of work. So well done. And I would like to hold any questions to the end of the session. So reserve any questions that you may have. So we will move on right now with a brief presentation from me, of all people, and because I'm on the list, and then from Janet for two fairly brief presentations. And so I will move on for my presentation here to share my screen. And okay, so can we see my screen? That I am talking to you on the subject of shared value. Okay, so okay, can everybody see my screen? Okay, okay, yeah.
No problem, Ken.
No problem. Okay, thanks. Great. So super. I just want to talk to you about the work that I'm doing on shared value, which is a subject close to my heart that I've been teaching for a couple of years now here at CAMED. And we have been trying to move forward with the subject to create a framework that we think is still required in the subject of shared value. And so what I want to do is to show you briefly a little bit of work in progress. And I've only presented this once before, but I wanted to talk to you briefly about the subject for which we have case studies, but we still feel that the subject is in its infancy in terms of the development of measurement and appreciation of what shared value actually is. So, and in particular, we do notice in the industry that times are moving on, and addressing social needs means that there can actually be what we call game changers. There can actually be businesses which appear from time to time, which can change the way that businesses run. And we have examples of this. And I want to go through very briefly in this 10 minutes or so to talk to you about what is shared value, okay? Shared value is all about business meeting society's needs, okay? Shared value is all about the creating and addressing a social need whilst simultaneously making a profit, okay? It's distinct from other forms of social enterprise because it is the only one with an absolute limitless incentive to make profits. There's no problem with profits at all, and address social needs at the same time, okay? And examples could include basic products, from giving a bank account to those who haven't had bank accounts before, improving healthcare to those who can't afford it, making insurance affordable, opportunities for lower paid jobs, agricultural industry, tourism industry, lots of opportunities to actually do business whilst actually addressing a social need, one of which is employment. Okay. Saving the environment, improving the environment, especially saving water, building new skills for the workforce, okay, developing the microeconomics of competitiveness, as we know, saving energy, access to better energy, all of it can be candidates for creating shared value. And once in a while, businesses do come along where it happens that they do find that addressing social needs is very much more profitable than previous best practice, okay? Where innovation actually addresses a social need, where there is effective demand so that people pay for it, where returns can be better than the industry, and in some cases, then creating shared value can create a new normal, okay? And we're looking for these, but we're not only looking for game changers. We're looking for sustainable business practices which address social needs and also actually create profits and are sustainable for the company themselves, okay? And the process by which we look at that, by which I look at that, is that shared value requires a strategy. Shared value requires an intention. You've got to want to address the social need. It doesn't just happen. You have to build a business model to target the underserved, where there is effective demand, to address that social need, build the capabilities, build the resources, and the results can come along in that you might have initiatives which you can consider marginal, in that they work, they don't make a huge profit, but they can create some platform for other businesses. Many firms find this, especially in healthcare businesses. Companies like Becton Dickinson in the United States, a healthcare company, has many activities which can be classed as shared value. Not necessarily all of them make huge profits, but they all create platforms for something else. Sustainable practices, Walmart does many. Walmart employs 250,000 ex-service people from the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. And it's a sustainable model. It creates a job opportunities for those who may struggle a little bit for job opportunities. And it creates a loyal workforce for Walmart, okay? Nestle, with its programs to encourage farmers to stay on coffee farms rather than move to the cities and improve productivity of coffee farms. They're all very sustainable activities. Game changer activities, the classic one I look at is Discovery, the South African healthcare insurance, which has actually almost 30 years ago now determined that it's better, cheaper, and more profitable to encourage people to stay fit and incentivize people to stay fit, and then reduce the long-term cost of their insurance rather than just by giving them insurance at one point in their life dependent on previous health and saying that's the insurance you're paying for the future. Discovery have found a better way to do it, which is more profitable and has really encouraged other insurance firms to change the way that they do business to address social needs. Okay. Now this, in a few minutes, is my way of looking at social needs and the shared value framework. Because when you look at the literature, the Michael Porter paper, which with Mark Kramer, which came out defining shared value in 2011, has been reviewed and criticized by many. And I looked at this literature review by Demenbeck from Australia in 2016, who found that there really isn't a consistent definition of shared value and no consistent measurement, okay? And even though we are looking at shared value in terms of products and services which are created, in the value chain by building competencies and resources, reducing waste, and enabling cluster collaboration and development. There's somewhere along the line, academics and people who studied shared value still can't quite agree on how this all should be put together, okay? So I will move on slightly, that I decided to go back to Michael Porter and Mark Kramer's original work to see if it is possible to put together a framework, okay? And I found as the research question that the intention to create shared value is very, very important. And what might we see? Okay, what kind of indicators might we have if a social need is being addressed? Okay, how might we measure progress? It looks very complicated. And I decided to put together a set of indicators, which I'm still doing, on what it might look in terms of products and services. Okay, if you are a company with a new product and services which addresses a social need, what's the market size? How profitable is it? What's the impact of the innovation, the way you're delivering a social need? Okay, what does it do for your reputation? Does it give you other opportunities in the value chain? Does it allow you to build resources, allow you to build competencies and skills building? For example, Discovery, the South African insurance company, has built enormous skills in actuarial work, trying to successfully monetize and incentivize the idea of keeping people fit. And they do it, okay? They've built enormous skills, okay? And you have the cluster level, which we talk about, the building the local economy, encouraging collaboration, spillovers to other areas. Clusters do a lot of work in building local economies, and that extends towards shared value. And excuse me for moving on, but we've developed and we are developing for each of these, for each private sector benefit, an indicator and a source. And there will be many indicators, and it's something that the indicator can be whatever it is that's appropriate for the social need that you're addressing, okay? And I took the social needs from the original paper by Michael Porter and Mark Kramer, and also from the Social Progress Index, and I basically summarized them and said, but you can actually summarize everything by saying that 5 areas of social need that we can incorporate everything: quality economic activity, education and workforce skills, health and safety, social progress, which includes the creation of opportunities and well-being for people, and improving the environment. And I put indicators for each of these, and I'm quite happy to go through these again in detail when we move on. But with each set of indicators, I've eventually come out with the idea of, are we really creating shared value and where? Okay. And this slide is important because it distinguishes between those which are marginal, which have positive value but not necessarily great profits, but can create platforms for future opportunities. Whether they're sustainable, which is what you want, shared value initiatives work to address social needs and give the company sustainable profits as well, or do they actually have the potential to disrupt the industry like Discovery have done and others have done? And we find that they are measurable, okay? And that the end result of saying, are these shared value intentions, for example, this is Discovery Channel, Discovery Limited, making people healthier, okay, that's their intended shared value. It does have the potential at every level: effective demand, market size, building resources and competencies. It does have the opportunity to change the game, okay? And having gone through this for both societal level and for the firm level, we've decided it is possible just to map very briefly each shared value initiative and look at the potential and look at the actual impact that it's having. And you'll see that I've just done this for two of the case studies that we do, the Harvard Business School case studies, Intercore Peru, three of their shared value initiatives, providing local skills and local economy development, access to remote areas, products for the underserved, okay? And Discovery, making people healthier, providing short-term incentives, reducing the long-term costs of insurance. And we've looked at those across the whole spectrum, which is the columns, to say, what does it do to the firm? What does it do to the value chain? Does it encourage cluster development and collaboration? And does it actually contribute to social needs? And my final slide, because I do want to move on very briefly, is that we've looked at this and tried to map out in very basic terms where the potential for disruption to the industry, where the potential for sustainable shared value activities actually lies. And for these, I've taken on the rows the 10 case studies that we use for the shared value course, and I've given them each 3 shared value initiatives, and we've basically started on this process. And I presented it a month ago, and I think the response was fairly good, and this is ongoing progress. That measuring shared value is in its infancy. This is an iterative process, but I'd like to say thank you very much to everyone for listening, and I'm sure that that I myself will have an opportunity to talk to you more about this in due course. So thank you. Okay. So okay. So thanks very much, everybody. I think that if I could, for our final presentation before the break, could I again reserve questions for a little bit later? And Janet, if I can give you the floor on Taiwan cluster growth, that will be fantastic. Okay.
Hi. Let me focus my screen. Okay, I'll be real quick since we're a little bit late. So my topic is about Taiwan's cluster, and I have been studying this in the past 15 years or so, and I'm going to use 10 years census data to present to you to see how is Taiwan doing in the past 10 years. What are the sustaining cluster for Taiwan once we have used the cluster mapping definition that was defined by Michael Porter and Delgado in their research paper. And also I use the same framework to calculate the employment and revenue of CAGR of 2006, 2011, and 2016. So 3 sets of data to derive some of the summaries here. And I found that it's very important to use some of the visualization tool for cluster mapping, for the mapping data. And I'm going to quickly show that since I don't really have much time here. And I do use Tableau to show the map. What should Taiwan be doing in terms of their economic growth strategy? That's a big question after we have reviewed the past decades of data. And what is Taiwan's cluster initiative, if there is any, and what should policymakers be concerned with? So I have a lot of open questions, but I don't have all the answers. But I can show you what is the data is telling us. So first of all, I want to demonstrate to you about the, let me move this away, about the data. This is 2006 revenue and employment composition. To read this, the size of the bubble, the size of the circle, it's the employment size. So the bigger size, the bigger cluster. And the color itself, it's representing revenue. That's for 2006. And blue color meaning that is growing. And the red color meaning it's not growing. So this is quite of alert right here. And then if we look into 2011 data, and even it's flipped in size, we're looking at IT and distribution, similar map with a similar kind of growth and not growing effect. Now we're looking at 2016 data, very similar, maybe insurance service, very small size of employment size is insurance. That is, it's right in the middle, not growing, not decaying. So by these three different pictures, we can tell that information technology and analytical instruments is the one that is in the very stable, sustainable, growing sector, and also fairly large sector. The top two is IT and distribution electronic commerce. These two added together, it's about 20% of the full employment percentage. And then if we look at from 2006 to 2016, employment size and revenue growth. So the size is the employment size and the revenue growth. And this is CAGR of 10 years. And we are looking at the growing is blue, the non-growing is red. Okay, and then the pale one is almost zero, not doing anything. So we know that from here, IT sector, IT cluster, it's a very strong, sustainable cluster. And of course, semiconductor is part of it, including other IT and instruments sector there. And then distribution electronic commerce is just staying, not moving up and down. And we do have some other growing sectors, growing clusters, but they are rather smaller sectors, okay, smaller clusters. Now this is a 2006 to 2016 of bubbled charts. We can see very well these two, IT and distribution electronics, with a share of close to 10% share each cluster. And the growth rate is about 3.27 and 3.4. So they have the similar growth rate within this 10 years. And these two are very stable. And business service is staying without any growth, but it has its fairly large shares. Other than that, everything's really below than 3% of the total employment. And we're looking at the decaying cluster. Plastic is decaying. Taiwan has been known for a plastic country, plastic production country, and that is starting to decay. Construction products and recreation, small electronics. One of the large decay is downstream chemical products. That has a fairly large decay, close to 20% decay. And non-metal mining, it's a large drop, okay. So from here, we can see from these three-dimensional charts of the growth rates that this is just purely on employment. This is what people are switching out from one cluster to another cluster. Okay, now this is 2006 to 2011, which is the first 5 years. And we can see very well that IT stands very strong. And business service, it's the third largest cluster. All the rest upstream metal manufacturing is doing fairly well, metalworking, but again, downstream metal products are decaying. And that interpret to be that the production is okay, but the sales to actually, I have looked at the ITC data, the sales to the European countries and North America countries are really dropping, and those may be replaced by other developing countries. Okay, so here I am using Tabloid's mapping software, and this is a quite a useful software. This gives us a visual indication where the major industry, sustainable industry are located. And if I can switch this over to, let me see. Let me switch this over to Tabloid. You are looking at Tabloid right here. And from here, I have a revenue employment growth of 26 and 2016. And we can see from here, this, although does not display some of the decaying clusters, this is actually showing some of the potential growing clusters. For example, performing arts has a high growth on the employment and revenue. Now, this is both our growth data, not the size. But then performing arts is a very small size cluster. So from that, we can tell that the very strong cluster, which is IT, is dominating Taiwan's cluster, and the small cluster are growing, but they're very small. They have very little potential to grow very, very quickly, very large, unless there are some initiatives, bottom-up initiative, or there could be some policy that could help with the growth if the policy is set correctly. But then, of course, you cannot help all industries. We must study to see what has the potentials to grow, what is ready to grow. So from Tabloid, we are able to tap into all the data and in this graphical view, and then we can point to the bubbles and see which one has a strong potentials. Okay, and let me show you another one, which is, this is a revenue growth with 2016 employment size. Information technology is a very large sector with blue color, which is growing. And another large one is distribution, but not growing. Business service is the third largest, and it is also still growing. So here we can see business service being the very high potential, since it's fairly large. It's more than 5% of the total employment, which is rather important. And everything else is below than 3%. Doesn't mean that 3% below is not important, but we also need to look at the growth rate. When the cluster is very small, it's less likely to attract, has that momentum to attract a lot of laborers to come into this sector, unless it's very profitable, very fast growth. Okay, so from here, I have demonstrated that most of the IT industry clustered in the North region, okay, in the North region, which that's where Tony is resided in Yitri. That is a Hsinchu Science Park, that the whole cluster of semiconductor supply chain is located right at this area. And the spillover takes over the effect of absorbing neighbors' labor into that industry. We are seeing that effect. Okay, and then my last question is, summarize this. Taiwan has two important clusters, IT and distribution, electronic commerce. Taiwan's position in a supply chain providing value-added production service, which Michael, in the very beginning of the keynote speech, talked about Asians' value-added supply chains interact with all different countries, and Taiwan plays a very important part of that. And Taiwan needs to re-examine its economic development to find perhaps the next cluster that is productive. And also Taiwan is not solely dependent on one cluster, one very strong cluster. That could be a blessing, but it could be dangerous too. So that's my conclusion. Thank you very much.
Many, many thanks to you, Janet. Great presentation, as one of the comments has said. Beautiful diagrams. And I would like to point out a couple of things. That one thing that Janet is doing is not only picking out the established clusters, but actually looking at things like performing arts, which maybe are not so big at the moment, but which might attract something in the future. I think this is great piece of work, okay? And so from Mongolia and from Taiwan, we have some fantastic cluster work. And of course, the other point I'd like to make very briefly is that we are using this as a workshop to help each other publish our work. And that's an important aim of the MOC Asian chapter, as well as our collaboration work. And it's good that we have the opportunity to present this work. And hopefully we'll have a few minutes at the end for questions. But I think right now everybody needs a break. Okay, so could I suggest that we take a very short break, let's say about 8 minutes or so? Can we do that? Because I do want to finish in exactly 1 hour as we had planned, and we have 4 more great presentations to go. So could I suggest a quick break for people? And if you're with your computer right now, then have a look at our really good video on Cambodia. And so thanks very, very much again to the presenters this afternoon. I will share the screen on the video right now. Let's come back in about 8 minutes or so, and we'll continue. Okay. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Trongតំបន់អាស៊ីអាគ្នេយ៍ដែលមានចំនួនប្រជាជនសរុបប្រមាណជាង 15 កណ្ដកសញ្ញា 55 លាននាក់ ដោយសន្តានដីមានរាងដូចបាតផ្ទះដែលផ្ទៃទំនាបកណ្ដាលព័ទ្ធជុំវិញដោយភ្នំនិងខ្ពង់រាបជាមួយនឹងអាកាសធាតុត្រូពិចក្ដៅហើយសើម ស្របតាមគោលការណ៍អភិវឌ្ឍសហសវត្សរ៍ ប្រទេសកម្ពុជាបានជំរុញឲ្យមានកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចប្រកបដោយចីរភាព ផ្ដោតសំខាន់លើការវិនិយោគក្នុងវិស័យកសិកម្ម ហេដ្ឋារចនាសម្ព័ន្ធ ផ្លូវដឹកជញ្ជូន និងទូរគមនាគមន៍ ធម្មពលអគ្គិសនី ការអភិវឌ្ឍធនធានមនុស្ស ឧស្សាហកម្ម អតិពលកម្ម ផលិតផលកម្មន្តសារសម្រាប់នាំចេញ និងទេសចរណ៍ ប្រទេសកម្ពុជាមានក្រឡាផ្ទៃតូចដែលសម្បូរទៅដោយធនធានធម្មជាតិនិងសម្បត្តិវប្បធម៌សម្រាប់ឧស្សាហកម្មទេសចរណ៍ ជាពិសេសនៅតំបន់ពីរយប់ ភូមិភាគកណ្ដាល តំបន់និរដី និងតំបន់ឦសាន ដែលបានទាក់ទាញការវិនិយោគជាច្រើនដោយបង្កើតនូវការងារ បង្កើនប្រាក់ចំណូលជាច្រើនដល់ប្រជាជន រួមទាំងបង្កើតនៅចង្វាក់ផលិតកម្មនៃវិស័យសេវាកម្មជាច្រើនដូចជាសេវាកម្មភោជនីយដ្ឋាន ម្ហូបអាហារ បដិសណ្ឋារកិច្ច ការដឹកជញ្ជូន មគ្គុទ្ទេសក៍ និងហាងទំនិញជាដើម ដោយមានអន្តរទំនាក់ទំនងរវាងវិស័យទេសចរណ៍និងវិស័យផ្សេងៗទៀត បានធ្វើឲ្យមានការលូតលាស់ដល់ជីវភាពប្រជាជនកម្ពុជា ជាពិសេសកសិករបន្តការដាំដុះផលិតផលកសិកម្មសម្រាប់ទ្រទ្រង់នៅតម្រូវការម្ហូបអាហារក្នុងស្រុក និងផលិតករនានាក៏ទទួលបាននូវការរីកចម្រើននៃអាជីវកម្មរបស់ខ្លួន ដែលជំរុញដល់ការអភិវឌ្ឍលើមូលធនមនុស្ស ការអភិវឌ្ឍធនធានមនុស្សគឺជាចលករមួយក្នុងការជំរុញការអភិវឌ្ឍសង្គមនិងសេដ្ឋកិច្ចរបស់ប្រទេស រដ្ឋាភិបាលបានធ្វើការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរចក្ខុវិស័យអប់រំ ពង្រឹងគុណភាពអប់រំដើម្បីផ្ដល់និរន្តរភាពនៃកម្លាំងពលកម្មប្រកបដោយជំនាញវិជ្ជាជីវៈពិតប្រាកដ ដើម្បីបំពេញបានតម្រូវការទីផ្សារការងារនៅក្នុងប្រទេស ប ជាមួយស្ថិរភាពនយោបាយនិងម៉ាក្រូសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនាពេលជាង2ទសវត្សរ៍ចុងក្រោយនេះកម្ពុជាមានកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចជាមធ្យម 7 កណ្ដកសញ្ញា 7% ក្នុងមួយឆ្នាំដែលកំណើននេះនឹងបន្តរក្សាក្នុងរង្វង់ 7% សម្រាប់រយៈពេលខ្លីនិងមធ្យមដែលធ្វើឲ្យធនាគារពិភពលោកដាក់ចំណាត់ថ្នាក់ជាប្រទេសមួយក្នុងចំណោមប្រទេសអតិថិកកំណើនទាំង 8 Olam Chance of Growth ក្នុងឆ្នាំ 2014 និងខ្លះសេដ្ឋកិច្ចថ្មីនៅអាស៊ីក្នុងឆ្នាំ 2016 ដែលប្រសិទ្ធនាមដោយធនាគារអភិវឌ្ឍន៍អាស៊ីប្រទេសកម្ពុជាជាប្រទេសមួយស្ថិតក្នុងតំបន់អាស៊ីអាគ្នេយ៍ដែលមានចំនួនប្រជាជនសរុបប្រមាណជាង 15 កណ្ដកសញ្ញា 55 លាននាក់ដោយសណ្ឋានដីមានរាងដូចបាតផ្ទះដែលផ្ទៃទំនាបកណ្ដាលព័ទ្ធជុំវិញដោយភ្នំនិងខ្ពង់រាបជាមួយនឹងអាកាសធាតុត្រូពិចក្ដៅហើយសើមស្របតាមគោលការណ៍អភិវឌ្ឍសហសវត្សរ៍ប្រទេសកម្ពុជាបានជំរុញឲ្យមានកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចប្រកបដោយចីរភាពផ្ដោតសំខាន់លើការវិនិយោគក្នុងវិស័យកសិកម្មហេដ្ឋារចនាសម្ព័ន្ធផ្លូវដឹកជញ្ជូននិងទូរគមនាគមន៍ថាមពលអគ្គិសនីការអភិវឌ្ឍធនធានមនុស្សឧស្សាហកម្មអតិពលកម្មផលិតផលកមណ្ឌសារសម្រាប់នាំចេញនិងទេសចរណ៍ប្រទេសកម្ពុជាមានក្រឡាផ្ទៃតូចតែសម្បូរទៅដោយធនធានធម្មជាតិនិងសម្បត្តិវប្បធម៌សម្រាប់ឧស្សាហកម្មទេសចរណ៍ជាពិសេសនៅតំបន់ពីរយប់ភូមិភាគកណ្ដាលតំបន់និរដីនិងតំបន់ឦសានដែលបានទាក់ទាញការវិនិយោគជាច្រើនដោយបង្កើតនូវការងារបង្កើនប្រាក់ចំណូលជាច្រើនដល់ប្រជាជនរួមទាំងបង្កើតនៅចង្វាក់ផលិតកម្មនៃវិស័យសេវាកម្មជាច្រើនដូចជាសេវាកម្មភោជនីយដ្ឋានម្ហូបអាហារបដិសណ្ឋារកិច្ចការដឹកជញ្ជូនមគ្គុទ្ទេសក៍និងហាងទំនិញជាដើមដោយមានអន្តរទំនាក់ទំនងរវាងវិស័យទេសចរណ៍និងវិស័យផ្សេងៗទៀតបានធ្វើឲ្យមានការលូតលាស់ដល់ជីវភាពប្រជាជនកម្ពុជាជាពិសេសកសិករបន្តការដាំដុះផលិតផលកសិកម្មសម្រាប់ទ្រទ្រង់នៅតម្រូវការម្ហូបអាហារក្នុងស្រុកនិងផលិតករនានាក៏ទទួលបាននូវការរីកចម្រើននៃអាជីវកម្មរបស់ខ្លួនដែលជំរុញដល់ការអភិវឌ្ឍលើមូលធនមនុស្សការអភិវឌ្ឍធនធានមនុស្សគឺជាចលករមួយក្នុងការជំរុញការអភិវឌ្ឍសង្គមនិងសេដ្ឋកិច្ចរបស់ប្រទេសរដ្ឋាភិបាលបានធ្វើការផ្លាស់ប្តូរចក្ខុវិស័យអប់រំពង្រឹងគុណភាពអប់រំដើម្បីផ្តល់និរន្តរភាពនៃកម្លាំងពលកម្មប្រកបដោយជំនាញវិជ្ជាជីវៈពិតប្រាកដដើម្បីបំពេញបានតម្រូវការទីផ្សារការងារនៅក្នុងប្រទេសជាមួយស្ថិរភាពនយោបាយនិងម៉ាក្រូសេដ្ឋកិច្ចនាពេលជាង2ទសវត្សរ៍ចុងក្រោយនេះកម្ពុជាមានកំណើនសេដ្ឋកិច្ចជាមធ្យម 7 កណ្ដកសញ្ញា 7% ក្នុងមួយឆ្នាំដែលកំណើននេះនឹងបន្តរក្សាក្នុងរង្វង់ 7% សម្រាប់រយៈពេលខ្លីនិងមធ្យមដែលធ្វើឲ្យធនាគារពិភពលោកដាក់ចំណាត់ថ្នាក់ជាប្រទេសមួយក្នុងចំណោមប្រទេសអតិថិកកំណើនទាំង 8 Olam Chance of Growth ក្នុងឆ្នាំ 2014 និងខ្លះសេដ្ឋកិច្ចថ្មីនៅអាស៊ីក្នុងឆ្នាំ 2016 ដែលប្រសិទ្ធនាមដោយធនាគារអភិវឌ្ឍន៍អាស៊ី
Welcome back, everyone. And I hope you had some break, even though it's a short break, but we're on time and we've got 4 great presentations to go. And again, if I could express my thanks to all the presenters and all the organizers so far. And right now, we'd like to move on to our colleagues from the Philippines. Okay, so I'd like to introduce Moses Adrian Zambrano and Soleil Ivory Corpus, who are now graduate students of Ateneo University in the Philippines and in Manila. And the Philippines hosted a couple of years ago our Asian Chapter Conference, and so we all managed to go there, and now we're online. But it's a pleasure to introduce Moses and Soleil. And so Moses and Soleil, on the Philippine Fintech landscape, I give the floor to you.
Thank you so much. Good day, everyone. So as mentioned, Soleil and I are graduate students from the Ateneo de Manila University. And together with the guidance of Dr. Alvin Ang, who I believe is here today, we wrote a paper titled The Philippine Fintech Landscape. So just as how email transformed letter writing, financial technology or fintech is transforming how we do finance. And the Philippines is no stranger when it comes to the emergence of this particular field or industry. So basically, we assess the competitiveness of the Philippines fintech industry by looking at the current macroeconomic environment and the supporting institutions influencing the industry's growth, among others. So I now turn over the mic to my co-author, Soleil, to discuss the initial chapters of our paper.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So in this slide, we show the macroeconomic situation in the Philippines. Prior to COVID, pre-COVID time, we see that the Philippines has been growing steadily. However, in 2020, the Philippine GDP contracted by about 9.6% as attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic. It stands to reason that it would be the micro and small enterprises that would be most affected. In fact, as shown here in the slide, the Philippine economy is largely influenced by the SMEs. In 2020, March 2020, the Philippine government enforced a strict lockdown to mitigate the negative effects of COVID-19, and businesses were forced to shut down. SMEs were not able to cope up with this sudden change in the business environment since they lacked the agility and flexibility regarding these changes. Next slide, please. In terms of the Philippine business analysis, using the Global Competitiveness Report Index, the Philippines has shown competitiveness in macroeconomic stability as compared to in relation to other neighboring countries. However, there's still a lot of areas that the country should improve in. Though the country seemingly is behind other ASEAN countries, the Philippines has improved in several aspects in its financial system, which is a positive development in the factor conditions. So we highlighted here the increase in the physical network of banks, the promotion of digital infrastructure, and which included easier KYC processes and interoperability among banks and non-banks as a positive development. For the demand conditions, we see that three major factors affecting this one. So this includes the consumer spending of middle income class families, the high volume of remittances, and high internet usage among Filipinos. Nevertheless, there's one major drawback in the Philippine fintech landscape, even the macroeconomic landscape of the Philippines, and this is the ICT infrastructure development. So we will mention this one later as we progress in the presentation. Next slide, please. For the factor conditions, we see that financial inclusion is one of the mandates of our central bank, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, and a significant number of Filipinos are still considered as underserved in terms of the financial services. So one of the most apparent way to address this financial inclusion is to set up physical bank channels. We see here in the slide that the growth of ATMs is faster than the bank branches, since between these two options, it is relatively easier to set up ATMs. However, it is costly and restricted. This measure of establishing more physical bank channels is costly and restricted by some concerns on infrastructure availability and even security issues across the country. Next slide, please. Another contributing factor condition is the possession of mobile gadgets among Filipino households. So given the 5-year data, or rather 6-year data, more Filipinos are being accustomed to mobile gadgets and technologies. In fact, the country has been dubbed as the social media capital of the world. The use of mobile gadgets is more pronounced, especially in 2020, when people and businesses turn to technology for online services. So these include entertainment, social media, retail, finance, and education. Next slide. Going to the demand condition, we see the middle income class as a very influential factor pushing for financial services and for fintech in the country. So we define the middle income class as household with 5 members earning 20,000 pesos to 115,000 pesos per month, which is equivalent to about 2,400 to 2,300 USD. So it is important to note that expenditures are used for daily necessities, which means that these transactions will be low value transactions but high volume. Given this, cash is more widely used mode of payment here in the Philippines. Next, please. As seen in this slide, remittances also serve as a demand condition, helping the fintech landscape in the country. So overseas remittances serve as a critical support in the Philippine economy, as this is about 9% to 10% of the Philippine GDP. In addition to this, domestic remittances also serve as an important factor in the country. So both domestic and overseas remittances are primarily used for food, education, and medical expenses, which reinforce the findings in the previous slide that the middle income class are using their income, especially for the basic necessities. This goes to show that cash would also be primarily used for daily transactions. For instance, as you see here in the domestic remittances, about 54.3% of the transactions have amount ranging from 1 peso to 5,000 pesos. So the maximum of this range is about an equivalent to USD 100. So this poses an opportunity for possible alternatives to cash, such as digital payments for remittances services, especially for the low value remittances, most probably for the domestic remittances here in the country. Next slide, please. One critical factor is the related and supporting industry, and this is the ICP sector. As shown here, we give you a list, just a very small list of telco providers in the Philippines. For the longest time, there are only two major providers, PLDT and Globe. And there has been a lot of call to have a third provider so that the service quality of the existing providers will be competitive, given that there is another player in the market. However, we see that the efforts are still not enough to be at par with other neighboring countries, as shown here in the slide that the Philippines is lagging in terms of the mobile speed and fixed broadband internet speed among other ASEAN countries. So there is still, the Philippines still need more time to develop the ICT sector, and given that the fintech sector really depends on the quality of the ICT sector. Next slide. I turn to ATN.
Yes, thanks. So talking about the history of fintech in the Philippines, the emergence of fintech actually started in 2000 when the central bank issued the first ever guidelines on the country's electronic banking system. And then from 2001 to 2004, two of the largest telco companies in the country introduced mobile money platforms, which allow users to transact using their mobile phones. These two, Smart and Globe, are believed to be one of the earliest pioneers of mobile money globally. And then moving forward to 2021, the central bank is now welcoming the entry of foreign neobanks. So neobanks bank is a type of bank that offers all digital and all mobile retail banking services. So examples are CIMB, which is based in Malaysia, and ING, which is based in the Netherlands. So the figure being presented now shows all interconnected entities and enablers that the authors identified while analyzing the industry. So as of now, digital payments and remittances dominate the fintech products and services being offered in the country. Now, fintech users or consumers can be categorized into three: person, business, and government. And X signifies the receiver end of the transaction. The latest statistics indicate that businesses or B2X payments remain to be the most significant in terms of value. Examples of these payments include taxes and fees paid to the government, payments to suppliers, and lastly, payroll payments. So the evolution of fintech has put pressure on regulators, not only in the Philippines, but globally, to strike a balance between creating an enabling environment for further innovation, and at the same time, mitigating various risks these technologies cause. So in the Philippine market, the central bank employs a test and learn approach, also termed as a regulatory sandbox. This approach allows financial institutions to operate, innovate, and experiment in a live environment, while the central bank attempts to understand the risks and craft appropriate regulatory responses. Okay, so examining the strengths and weaknesses of an industry's business environment is critical for determining development needs and formulating effective recommendations. And we all know that the Porter Diamond is a good visual tool designed to help us understand the competitive advantage of an industry. So I'll go over some critical points in the diamond. So focusing on the factor conditions here, the availability of young, educated, and English-capable labor pool remains to be one of the country's key source of competitive advantage. Such labor pool boosts the attractiveness of the country to foreign fintech firms and investments. Under the context for firm rivalry and strategy, the authors notice that the country does not yet have any specialized incubators or R&D facilities dedicated for driving innovation and encouraging startups within the fintech space. So these centers, we believe, are crucial because they provide funding and collaboration opportunities which may accelerate the growth of startups. And for the demand conditions, actually the entire Philippine banking system undoubtedly benefits from the country's large and growing population, and also not to mention the 2 million Filipinos working abroad. So this gives banks and fintech firms a relatively large market as well as multiple opportunities for expansion. So since face-to-face interactions are being discouraged currently, Filipinos have performed contactless payments by utilizing smartphone applications. A recent survey revealed that 99% of the respondents said that they plan to keep on using digital payments even after lockdowns are eased. So moving forward, regional collaboration between governments and fintech industry players will be vital in navigating the complex ecosystem of financial regulations, security protocols, and payments infrastructure. And on the local scene, governments need to use a range of incentives like fast internet, high mobile penetration, and tax incentives to attract fintech startups to Asia's unique marketplace and culture. So that ends our presentation. Feel free to contact us for queries or potential collaboration. Thank you for this opportunity.
Many thanks to you, Adrian and Soleil, for a fabulously detailed and a really sort of inspiring presentation on the fintech sector. I've learned a lot, okay, and you're using the diamond model approach, and you've explained it really well. It's a great case study. It's a great example of great graphics, and I think that all I can say is congratulations to you. So, and I would like to say a big thanks to our very good friend and colleague, Alvin Ang, who is hopefully with us right now, and for encouraging Soleil and Adrian to give this presentation. Alvin actually provided the very first paper that was published under the name of the MOC Asian Chapter, and will always be a founding member. Many thanks to you, Alvin, and many thanks to you, Soleil, and to Moses Adrian. Good on you. Thank you so much. Okay. Could I pass the floor now to our colleague here at CAMED? Okay, our colleague, Professor Lee Monirith, okay, who's going to talk to you about his research in the education field. And we are in the education business, and he's going to talk to us on educational development research. And so if I may pass the floor to you, Monirith, and it's over to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ken. So I hope you're seeing my screen and hearing me fine.
Yes,
so
we are.
I really appreciate the opportunity to present in this international conference. So I would like to present my preliminary research results on outcome-specific feedback on courses, which can also apply to evaluation of training workshops as well. The rationale for the study is that external quality assurance and accreditation agencies across the world are increasingly requiring outcome-based approaches to education. As part of the fitness for purpose quality model, an outcome-based curriculum must be evaluated to measure its effectiveness in meeting its stated outcomes. However, few course evaluation instruments ask students to assess their own learning outcomes. The significance of the study includes curriculum development, internal and external quality assurance. In an outcome-based education system, if course coordinators and faculty members use feedback to improve course learning outcomes, all other course components will need to be aligned accordingly. This will affect the whole curriculum to improve student learning and therefore better meet the needs of students, faculty, and the program. In terms of the internal quality assurance, this feedback instrument will provide sustainable, systematic inputs for outcome-based curriculum reviews in continuous quality improvement cycles. And it will also provide documentation for accreditation and accountability. So this study assesses the reliability and validity of students' self-measures of learning outcomes in relations to course intended learning outcomes, or the learning outcome statements. So the instrument that I mainly use is the outcome-specific questionnaire. And my first research question is, do students' perceptions of their beginning abilities against CLOs change after exposure to the course? If so, do their self-ratings significantly increase or decrease? 2, do students significantly improve during the course period their self-reported outcomes against CLOs? If so, to what extent? And the third question is, are post-survey self-ratings correlated to the assessments of students' task performance against CLOs? If so, how correlated are they? So this research design chart can show you the 3 research questions, as well as the variables and the data analysis methods. So the retrospective ability means students reflect on their ability at the beginning of the term, and their reflection time is at the end of the term. And the pre and post are basically self-explanatory. So the first research question tests whether their perspectives change on their beginning abilities. The second research question tests whether they have improved their knowledge and skills during the term. And the third question does correlation tests between the ability at the end of the term and also the assessment by the lecturers. So the courses were sampled based on large enrollment, as well as accessible course-specific learning outcomes, which are knowledge and cognitive skills. Survey data have been collected mostly online from 1,209 undergraduate students of 8 courses at 3 prominent higher education institutions in Cambodia. And assessment data have been provided by 13 lecturers of 6 courses. So these are the 8 sample courses, and they come from a variety of disciplines. So I have mentioned the instrument that I have used, which is the outcome-specific questionnaire for students. Also, the outcome-specific assessment tools are for lecturers to match the course learning outcomes to assessment tasks or items. So this is what the OSQ looks like. This is the pre-questionnaire, and you can see the 5 CLOs in here. And this is the post-questionnaire. It also includes the 5 ELOs of the same course. And there are the A items that ask them to reflect back at the beginning of the term. How much did they know, or and that is the retrospective abilities or the retrospective ratings. And the B items refer to the same CLOs, but at the time when they were completing the survey, which is at the end of the term, because this is the post questionnaire. So the main data analysis methods were principal component analysis to make sure that the unit dimensionality assumptions for calibration is met. Also, the calibration was conducted with the graded response model, and the calibrated pair t-tests were done as well, and correlation tests were also conducted to answer all the research questions. In terms of reliability, Cronbach's alpha results range from 0.72 to 0.96, which indicate high levels of reliability of the questionnaires. And in terms of the first research question, in a simple majority of courses, there is non-significant difference between pre and retro abilities, which means that their perceptions of their abilities at the beginning of the term did not change. To answer the second research question, almost all of the courses see significant increase from pre or retro to post abilities. This means that students significantly improve their knowledge and skills throughout the course. And the correlation tests have not been completed. So this will need to be completed later. The implications are that all the outcome-specific questionnaires used are reliable, and the post questionnaires can be used without the pre-questionnaires. In terms of the validity, again, I have to wait until I finish all of the correlation tests to tell whether it is reliable. I mean, to tell whether it's valid. Another implication is that each set of course-specific learning outcomes belongs to one principal component or construct, and survey self-ratings as ordinal data must be calibrated before appropriate statistical summaries and inferences can be drawn, because the gap between ratings of 1 and 2 may not be the same as that between 2 and 3. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Many, many thanks to you, Professor Monirith. This is really clear presentation of a subject which is very close to our hearts, which is education and making it effective. And part of this is the research you're doing, the very rigorous research that you're doing into the feedback from students, perceptions of what they learn from the beginning and the end of the course. I think it's a fantastic piece of research. And as I said, part of our mission is to help us publish our research. And it was great that you had took the trouble to explain it so clearly to us. So many thanks to you, Monirith, and it's a pleasure running the research course with you, which we do here for the Research Club here at CAMED. So thank you so much. And
well,
again,
thank you for your review of my previous draft as well.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So thanks so much. And again, we will be making material available to you, to everyone in some form or another. And so I'm hoping that this session is giving you something to, is putting people in touch with each other and giving you a reason to be in contact and building new bridges and new contacts. So Monirith, thank you so much. Monirith Lee, thank you. So, okay. Okay, so could I ask for the floor now to our, we have two student groups who volunteered very kindly and to present to us. And can I introduce to you group 6 at the moment, group 6 from my shared value class. And Chun Seng Yang, okay, Iadaria, Leng Moniamara, Rithi Nidanita, Sokontrutima, okay. Can I give you the floor? I see you've shared your screen already. So ladies and gentlemen, so group 6 on Compi IT Company, over to you.
Success is best when it's shared. Howard Schultz. As we are becoming a more conscious society, a successful business cannot just be measured by only its profit anymore. The creating share value concept means simultaneously creating value for the business and for the society. Even though Cambodia has developed into a low middle income country, a high percentage of our high school graduates and university students still cannot afford a laptop to help them keep up with their studies, as education is now shifting into e-learning. And this is where Compi, a technology development company based in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, comes into the picture. We, a team of third-year students from CAMED Business School majoring in accounting and finance, conducted an interview with the co-founder of Compi. They began with the vision of creating equal shared learning opportunities for students unable to afford a laptop of their own. The company now makes affordable full-grid notebooks and netbooks and is aiming to develop an alternative operating systems to those found on the market today. Not only do they make affordable products, they are also offering other services to help empower the youth and the workforce. Compi dreams of bringing knowledge and inspirations through technology to the developer and creators of tomorrow.
Compi is a technology development company based in Phnom Penh, Cambodia that designs and builds a solution-oriented productivity tools for the next generation doers and innovators. This company aims to develop a software operating system that could serve as an alternative to Mac OS and Microsoft Windows. In addition to that, Compi is the first Cambodian laptop brand which started their journey in 2018. The man behind this innovative idea is Mr. Thodapi, who is the co-founder. This company is located right in the center of Phnom Penh, Cambodia, and until now, it has approximately 21 to 100 employees whose ages are between 18 to 35.
So who will benefit the most from this business? First and foremost, Compi is considered to be a shared value, creating a shared value business. CSV company usually have a positive impact on people who are involved in it, especially their target customer. When asked about the company target customer, young adults were mentioned a lot throughout the interview. Upper secondary students and university students fall into this category of target customer. As for the market of laptop and computer here in Cambodia, there is no shortage of that. But not many people are able to afford those. This is where Compi comes in. Laptops are being produced by Compi, are for students from lower income families. Every university student needs a good laptop that is well performed as well as be able to connect to the internet. So in this digital era, hence we can say that Compi's ability to address the social needs is undeniably befitting. We know that Compi is willing to provide for this unserved market with a laptop that will aid their general learning and as well as e-learning. not only that, Kumpi is also currently planning to working on creating their own operating system, which can become their own IT systems in the future. And this project will become Kumpi's very own network of organization, which supports other projects and other devices that Kumpi will come up in the future. And they will also working on many side project that will come to picture in the near future. As for the business success and future prospect, Mr. T has stated that the success of his business can be measured by knowing everyone can be able to afford and own a Kumpi regardless of their financial situation and region. Until then, he and his team will continue to innovate and work hard on Kumpi as well as increasing the social impact.
So Kumpi is continuously pushing their employees to develop their skills through trainings and education advancement. To better illustrate how Kumpi is building resources and competencies, we would like to introduce to you Mr. Hong Sia. So Mr. Hong Sia originally started off as an apprentice in 2018, but he is now a lead developer in the network development department. He was the person behind Kumpi Fi-Fi, which is a project to provide internet connection throughout Cambodia, especially remote areas at an affordable cost. So as we all know, with the advent of dispersed work and learning, access to information means that any bright young person, however remote an area they live in, can grow, learn, and work among technology professionals, securing employment and wages through the digital economy. As we are progressing to a more digital era, COVID-19 playing a huge role in accelerating the process, of course, Kumpi is offering products and services that can help to solve some of the problems the education sector especially is currently facing. Kumpi is offering other products and services in addition to their laptops, such as Sila Kumpi, which is a platform where students and teachers can sign up as members and where lessons can be distributed. So they offer lessons in video format with a focus on STEAM subjects. Then there's also Kumpi One Lab Workstation. One Labs are advanced learning, teaching, work, and study environments centered around a local independent server at each school that enables teachers and administrators to facilitate and monitor students' progress in real time. Also, with its plan to manufacture computer hardwares, Kumpi is looking to find further growth opportunities, not just locally, but also in the regional and eventually in the global market. According to Mr. Rati, the business will be collaborating with foreign companies so that Kumpi can realize their dream of becoming its own hardware manufacturer and bring the products to the international market as well. So not only is Kumpi collaborating with schools, it is also currently approaching government institutions by selling them the hardwares that they produce with free software licenses so that the information system in those institutions become more centralized, and it can also help them to reduce expenses on software licenses. In many ways, Kumpi is helping Cambodia to navigate through today's social challenges and making it a more inclusive society. The tech company is contributing to many various components that make up the Social Progress Index, of which includes the access to basic knowledge, access to information and communications, as well as access to advanced education. As for the impact of the business on the local economy, one obvious impact is that Kumpi is providing job opportunities for the locals, especially in the information technology industry. Kumpi, as we mentioned earlier, is currently manufacturing their products in China, but they are planning to manufacture locally. So it means that once it does so, it will create more jobs for the locals in the future.
Creating shared value is not a new concept. Many businesses have been practicing creating shared value even before it was given a name back in 2011. More often than not, CSV businesses are not founded in developed countries, but rather created to address a social need in an unserved market segment of a developing country. As shown by Kumpi here, this tech company might have been the first computer software company to create their own operating system here in Cambodia. But the business was first created because the founders were trying to address the social needs. Kompi has looked into those unserved segments, and they created products to serve the needs of those people while simultaneously generating profit at the same time. From then on, Kompi spirals into something much bigger and now plays an important role in the students' community, especially during this pandemic when everyone is switching to e-learning. To quote Michael Porter, the purpose of the corporation must be redefined as creating shared value, not just profit per se. This will drive the next wave of innovation in productivity in the global economy. Thank you.
So many thanks to you. The Kompi group, group 6, fantastic. So to Senyang, Daria, Moniamara, okay, Nitanita, Chutima, thank you so much. And I think the point that you made looking at a shared value company, as you say, great presentation, comment from on the chat, that the idea that shared value is something that has been going on for a long while, and it's countries such as here where there is really strong evidence that there's a lot of companies looking to address social needs, that here is case studies that we are growing and we'd like to contribute these as well. I think that was a great presentation on Kompi Group, and I really thank you to Group 6 for doing that. And I think big congratulations, and I'll say it at the end as well, but the new generation for the MOC and TCI networks is you, and the groups who are presenting and the people who are attending here and will be presenting in the future. So thank you very much indeed to group number 6. And if I can simply pass it on to our final presentation of today, which is the group 7. So can I introduce our good friends, our student groups, Somovinifi, Soksrepan, Chun Ratanavivath, Veng Soksopia, okay, Tioson, Sophiathun, and Ingti Meng. So thank you to Group 7. So we're really looking forward to your presentation on Panya Dental Clinic, and I give the floor to you.
Thank you, Professor. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and valued participants. My name is Ratanai Watt, and today my team and I, a junior at CAMAT Business School, are delighted to be presenting to you guys about Panya Dental Clinic. We picked this company in particular to interview because we can see that this company is really adopting the work of creating shared value by serving the social needs such as providing workforce skill, worker safety, health and affordable housing, and also making profit at the same time. Our team is from Group 7, Business Ethics DE1, which consists of 6 members. They are Ms. Repin, Mr. Mavini, Mr. Thun, Mr. Timeng, and Ms. Sophia. We have all worked hard to put all of this information together in an easy and understanding way. So I hope you like what you're about to see. And if you have any question, we will be happy to answer at the end of this. Moving on to the next slide. This slide shows our table of content, which you can track on what we're going to talk about in this presentation. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the company background. Starting off with the name of the company, it's Panya Dental Clinic. It is owned and run by Dr. Song Panya. His company started in 2009, which means he has been running his business for over 10 years. In the period of over 10 years of running the business, he first started off as a small family business, but then he shifted it into a company in which he managed and controlled on his own. He mentioned that it has got more efficient and innovative from now then. His company is in the health clinic sector of the business sector, and their location of business is at Phnom Penh, Tudumpu, and is planning on opening another branch at Phnom Penh, Solan. And currently, he got a total of 12 employees working in his company. And about his company product and services, they are a wide range of general dentistry and other services related to teeth care. And you can take a look at this list. These are the product and services that Panya Dental Clinic provide.
Shared value basis target. As one of the leading local dental clinic, Panya Dental Clinic target those who fall in both middle income and high income groups. They mainly target those who are in Phnom Penh, especially those who are surrounding the area of the business itself. During the interview, Dr. Song Panya also mentioned about dividing his customers into 4 main age groups, including the first groups, those who falls in between the age of 5 and 18 years old. They are not really profitable since they are not suitable for most of the services due to the young age. The second group are those who fall in between the age of 19 and 25 years old. This group generate an average profit. The third group are those who fall in between the age of 26 years old and 45 years old. They generate a good amount of profit. And last but not least, the last group are those who are 46 years old and older. This group generate the most profit among the other groups since they are suitable for a more expensive services due to they tend to have a more problems with their teeth. Now moving on to the next slide. As we already know, the market of basic dentistry has existed already for a long time. However, Panya Dental Clinic is also now serving the newly and unserved market of advanced dentistry, which includes a newly developed dentist skills as well as high technology equipment. On top of that, Panya Dental Clinic also conforms with high standard, making sure that services given are at its highest quality, as well as maintaining a hygienic experience for their beloved customers, which most of the local clinics are incapable of doing so yet.
Innovations. The innovations that the company is trying to innovate is the mobile applications, which allow the business to converting from an offline into an online business. The creations of this mobile application has 2 main purposes. The first one is to collect the data of their previous patients and also allow the patients to book their own appointment with the doctors. The second purpose is to provide an online consultation with patients, which is something the business is still working on. And this will make the business become much more stronger than other dental clinics in Cambodia. Moving on to the next slide, which is about social need addressed. There are 4 main social needs that the company has addressed. The first one is the workforce skills. Majors such as dentists, doctors, and other that related to health is really popular in Cambodia. So each year, there's a lot of fresh graduate dentists, and the company is addressing this social need by providing working opportunity for those fresh graduate dentists through opening new branches so they could find job. Secondly, it is health. You can see that in Cambodia, not many schools has actually educated students on how to properly clean the teeth. By seeing this problem, the company has decided to collaborate with schools in order to share the basic knowledge about dental care to local and especially to children at schools. Besides the workforce skills and health, the company is also addressing the worker safety by providing employees a comfortable working environment and a free basic healthcare service to all of the staff. Last but not least, affordable housings. To help cut down the rental expense for their employees, they also provide a free living space to all of their staff. Next, the indicators to success. There are 2 main indicators to what the company's success. The first one is to become #1 dental clinics in Cambodia by providing wide range of good quality service that is currently available in Cambodia, and also focusing on dental health awareness as well as education. Lastly, be able to open other branches across Cambodia.
Impact of share value approach. In order to address the social need and earn the profit for the company at the same time, Panya Dental Clinic is currently building resources by planning to establish a new branch in Phnom Penh. According to our interview, Dr. Panya told us that he is currently trying to find the right location and the number of equipment that are needed for his new branch. This is done with the aim to expand for graduate. Implant I'm sorry. I would like to apologize for the internet connection errors. So beside building the branches of the clinic, the doctor also mentioned that he is currently building the competencies and new skill for the clinic by introducing the full mouth restoration with implants and also smile design. And since these skills are new to the market, so it requires a lot of research and also experiment. More than that, he also offered trainings to undergraduate students so that they can learn practical skills to do the practical work. Moving on to the next part is the platform for future growth. According to Dr. Peña, the two skills that he will introduce in his clinic are the skills that have not been addressed by many dentists yet. So by doing this, it will help him to capture most of the market by entering the new market. This obviously will increase his profitability. Moving on to the next part is the impact on local economy. As we have already mentioned, Peña Dental Clinic create job opportunity for graduate students. So this obviously helps to reduce the unemployment rate in Cambodia. On top of that, the clinic also offers free basic dental care to local people, especially children, so that they can learn about the importance of teeth care. Dr. Peña also mentioned that 30% of his profits come from foreign customers, and it is used to invest back into the company and also contributes to local economic growth. Moving on to the next part is the impact on public service. Due to the fact that Peña Dental Clinic aims to provide high quality service to the customer, the clinic actually adopt new technology and also a modern equipment, which give a customer easy access. Recently, the clinic launched its mobile application, which allowed the customers to book appointment and also make consultation with the doctor with affordable price. More than that, it's also implement the standard working procedure, which provide hygiene, comfort to the workers and the employees.
Next, we will look at collaborations with other companies. Peña Dental Clinics collaborated with other companies through signing MOU or Mutual Aid Memorandum of Understanding, which leads to better brand recognition for the clinic as well as introducing customers to each other's businesses. By collaborating with MOU, the company is also able to get more customers by providing incentives for each other's customers as well as capturing new markets. Last but not least, contribution to social progress and well-being. Peña Dental Clinic contributed to the overall well-being in assessing basic knowledge and health and wellness. For access to basic knowledge, the firm volunteered to provide and share basic knowledge in dental care to locals, especially to children at school. Moreover, they also provide consultancy services as well as advice for customers on dental care. As for health and wellness, it is obvious that the company is contributing to the health and wellness of the social progress and well-being as it is a dental care business. Not only does having healthy teeth and good oral hygiene increases both self-esteem and confidence, but it also decreases the chance of getting disease. So, in short, we can conclude that Peña Dental Clinic is adopting a shared value approach by earning profit and addressing social needs at the same time. Now, it is the end of our presentation. I would like to say thank you to our professor, our respective guests, and our valued participants for paying attention and listening to our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. So I would think the Peña Group, thank you so much for your great presentation covering all of the aspects of shared value, which so beautifully and simply and showing how the community is benefiting as well as the business growing. I think it's marvelous. I think that it's a lovely little case study, and one that many people can use and refer to. And we've built it on the framework of shared value. That's great. So thank you so much. Okay. So I think that all I can say to our student groups from our Philippines and from the Kumbi group and from the Panya group, so many congratulations. You are the new generation that we need, and I thank you greatly. As Sevelmar said in the comments, great presenters, great presentations. So thank you so much to Panya Group. It was really valuable. I enjoyed every minute. Okay, so thank you. It's a wonderful opportunity. I think that to do now is to, we've come to the end of our time. It's on time, but look at the saying congratulations to all the groups. It's been such a wonderful learning experience, and we would like to actually thank everybody. The first thing I would like to, Casey, you've been our president, you've supported us, you've allowed us to do this. Could I invite you to say a few words, Casey? So to the end of our conference, reflections from yourself. Okay.
Thank you, Ken. Well, it's been exciting, and I've learned a lot from the presentations today, with greater insight into China's economic initiatives with the presentation by Michael Enright, with the up-to-date and economic insight with the developments in Cambodia by Lee Sodate of the World Bank, and opportunities and trends in learning in the digital era presented by Pieng Ratanan. I appreciate Tony Lin's presentation on digital transformation framework for SMEs, and as well as the Mongolian cluster sustainability presented by Seselma Kargas and Tul Sharav Dembarel. And also the presentation on creating shared value by our professor Ken Charman, and the Taiwan cluster mapping and cluster growth presented by Janet Tan. I also found very interesting the presentation on the Philippine Fintech landscape and educational development research presented by Professor Lee Monirin, as well as our student presentations on creating shared value in Cambodia. All of our academic professors are well published online, and much of the research presented today and related research is available online in online publications. Just to give an example, I have here a copy of the Cambodia Economic Update published by the World Bank, which Mr. Lee Sodate presented today, which is available on the World Bank website. Our other presenters also have substantial publications, academic publications and research and articles available. So I would like to invite all of you who found one or more presentations particularly interesting to explore their work more with the available publications online. And in closing, we would not be here today if it wasn't for one man, Mr. Ken Charman, who has worked very hard, networking, gathering, encouraging, soliciting papers, and connecting everybody over the last 6 months to bring this conference together to what it was over these last 2 days. And please, everybody, give a round of applause, a round of virtual applause to the hard work and coordination of Professor Ken Charman.
Thank you so much. And also,
special thanks to Janet Tan for her support over these months as well, and her support coordinating the Zoom webinar. And also thanks to Mr. Li Hong of CAMED Business School, who has been assisting us with the administration. Li Hong, also thank you very much. And congratulations and thanks to all presenters for your valuable time and insight that you have shared with us today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Casey. So thanks for supporting us all the way. And it's, you know, even the, you know, putting together the video and organizing the support, it's really, really appreciated. And I think CAMED has done ourselves proud. And I think that I'd like to say just very, very quickly, if I can continue on here, to reiterate the thanks to everybody, to for Casey for supporting us, in to our great friends from TCI, Merueta, Patricia, John, and all the team there for co-hosting with us, because that's a new collaboration and it's recognized by MOC. They hey, wow, look, MOC and TCI have collaborated and they've done it well. Okay, and there's lots that we can share and lots that we will follow up on. So thanks so much to our colleagues at, from TCI for co-hosting, and let this be the start of something new. Okay. And as indeed it started last year with our collaboration, so we've already been in action a long time. So I think just to reiterate very, very quickly to all our presenters from around the world, to our attendees from around the world, from our colleagues at MOC in Harvard, people like Christian who've come along and actually presented to us. I see we have attendees from several attendees from Europe and different parts of the world. It's good to see everyone, good to be in touch. Remember our third Friday of every month research meetings organized by Janet. Okay, remember that this is another forum which we will continue to keep in touch and grow from the bottom up. So huge thanks to everyone, Janet especially, for all the technical side. Really, really, really thank you so much. Sevelmar, Tula, Tony, Anacol, who's somewhere in the background and always with us, founding member, people like Alvin, you know, it's great to have you on board. My special thanks again to Li Hong, who's sitting next to me now, and my colleagues at LSE, without whom, honestly, I don't know what it would have been like if they'd not been here. So thanks so much. It's really good, super organization. Let's follow up. Let's do what we plan to do. Let's create this ebook and let's keep in touch and see where we can progress. A big, big thanks to everyone, our students, our presenters, our organizers, our attendees. Let's make these new contacts and follow them up. Thanks hugely to everyone. The final thing I have to do is perhaps pass to Janet to say we need a photo. Okay.
Yes, yes,
okay.
Definitely. Everybody smile. Thank you very much. Oh, one more, just a minute. Smile again. Great. Good shot. Thank you. Everybody have a good evening, and I'm going to go to sleep.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Keep in touch. Bye for now. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank you.